Chapter 1946 A Single Life, 3. Chapter 1946 A Single Life, 3. Lin Ming didn't know what the Dragon Sovereign's present situation was like. After he was chased by Tian Mingzi into the eternal demon abyss, and when he left, the Dragon Sovereign had already been in a precarious state. In just the blink of an eye, over 100 years had passed. How was the Dragon Sovereign doing now? When Empyrean Primordius left, he seemed to have severed all connections with the Dragon Sovereign. Then, if Empyrean Primordius had perished, it was likely the Dragon Sovereign hadn't felt it at all. The little black dragon was extremely intelligent. It already understood the entire situation, and at this time, it lay quietly on Lin Ming's back, not even making a single noise. In its eyes, there was nothing but a boundless black wilderness. And at the end of this wilderness there was a terrifyingly giant abyss that revealed a dreadful aura. In the little black dragon's eyes, a trace of confusion appeared. Within its memories, it seemed to faintly recall this place. As if it had seen it before in a dream. "Let's go," Lin Ming said. He flushed forwards like a shot arrow, rapidly crossing thousands of miles. He headed towards that massive abyss and leapt down into it. Darkness rapidly passed over them. With familiar ease, Lin Ming avoided the ancient lifeforms in the demon abyss and swiftly passed through the tombs of the martial artists until he arrived at the deepest depths of the eternal demon abyss. Faintly, Lin Ming could feel an incredibly horrifying aura transmitting from deep within the eternal demon abyss. The small black dragon was a bit nervous. Its large black eyes blinked. There was anticipation in its eyes but also a hint of fear. One person, one dragon. The two of them slowed down. Then they felt a boundless vigor that carried with it faint and warm threads of a dragon's majesty. A planet-sized ancient black dragon slowly appeared in the dark void. As Lin Ming and the little black dragon flew in front of it, they seemed as small as motes of dust. And on this giant ancient black dragon's body, 9 chains wrapped around it. Each chain was thick enough that not even 100 people together could wrap their arms around it. At the end of these chains were massive metal hooks that plunged into the black dragon's flesh, binding it in place. Where these metal hooks came into contact with the black dragon, the area would be stained with black dragon blood and pieces of meat. After 100,000 years, this blood had solidified into thick layers of black and brown that alarmed the mind. Lin Ming sucked in a deep breath. Although he had seen this before, seeing it again still left him depressed and filled with sorrow. As for the little black dragon, as it saw this sight, its eyes began to fill with pain and sadness. Its large and bright eyes started to turn wet with tears. "Senior, Junior has returned." Lin Ming bowed. The silent black dragon slowly opened its eyes. The dragon's pupils were like lakes of amber that emitted a quiet light. In the darkness they were especially noticeable. When the black dragon opened its eyes, the little black dragon also held its breath. At this time, the little black dragon was in an extremely complex mood. There was fear, there was sorrow, and from deep within its bloodline, there was an inerasable love. 200 years, the black dragon slowly said. It looked at the small life in front of it. The growth of a dragon was a long process. This little black dragon only appeared to be a dozen or so years old. When converted to the age of a human, this little black dragon was nothing more than a newborn baby. Then, it looked at Lin Ming. Lin Ming's changed appearance and his lowered cultivation left the black dragon surprised. From Lin Ming's inner world, from Lin Ming's potent vitality, from Lin Ming's deep soul force, it could feel a terrifying potential. "You seem to have obtained a new life?" the black dragon asked, unsure. Lin Ming nodded. He let out a sigh in his heart. He could tell from the black dragon's voice that it had become far, far older than before. Its fires of life were nearing their end and it was doomed to never be able to return to the heaven-shaking grandeur it once possessed in the past. Lin Ming thought for a moment and then decided to tell the black dragon everything about Empyrean Primordius. Lord Dragon Sovereign, Junior went to the Primeval universe and met the primal god race. There, I also discovered the whereabouts of Senior Primordius. The black dragon was stunned upon hearing this. "Primordius? You saw him, he?" Seeing Lin Ming's expression, the black dragon had a foreboding feeling deep in his heart. He didn't continue speaking but instead waited for Lin Ming's explanation. Lin Ming took a deep breath and explained everything that occurred to Primordius from start to finish, even describing what Primordius' final moments were like. After hearing this, the black dragon was wordless for a long time. Perhaps what happened was the best possible result for Primordius. It might have been what Primordius hoped to see. 100 different emotions passed through the black dragon's heart. It looked at Lin Ming, looked at its descendant, and fell into silence. Suddenly, light began gathering between its eyebrows. Within the eternal demon abyss, the surrounding heaven and earth origin energy started gathering towards the black dragon's single horn. Seeing this, Lin Ming was bewildered. Senior Black Dragon, you. From the black dragon's body, Lin Ming could feel all of its essence energy and flesh and blood essence gathering towards the point between its eyebrows. Lin Ming seemed to faintly realize what was occurring. He asked, Senior, just what are you planning to do? And at this time, a beam of light shot out from between the black dragon's eyebrows. It shot directly onto the small black dragon that was beside Lin Ming. As the little black dragon was bathed in this light, it cried out in alarm and surprise. It only felt that the energy within this light was warm beyond possibility, so comfortable that it wanted to sleep. But it also felt that something wasn't right. However, it inevitably wasn't able to withstand the increasing heaviness of its eyelids and it slowly shut its eyes, nearly falling asleep. Lord Dragon Sovereign, did you just give your life essence to Little Black? Lin Ming was worried. The black dragon's life force had originally been greatly diminished to begin with. If it lost any more life essence, then it would perish that much sooner. In fact, the black dragon might not be able to wait for Lin Ming to grow and gain enough strength to shatter apart the 9 dragon trapping cables laid down by the Saint race powerhouses in the past. The black dragon remained silent as it continued passing life essence. Only when Little Black was no longer able to absorb any more did it finally stop. In the next moment, the little black dragon was wrapped in a black brilliance. It sank into the void and began sleeping. After doing all of this, the black dragon seemed to age, becoming much older. Its eyes became bleaker and more clouded. It looked at Lin Ming and the corners of its massive jaw seemed to lift up a little in a smile. I know what you are thinking. You probably hope that I can wait long enough until you can fight with an ordinary Empyrean and then break open these dragon trapping cables to rescue me. The truth is, you don't have to waste so much effort or thought. I have already become used to staying here. These dragon trapping cables have deeply pierced into my organs and for the last 100,000 years they have grown together with my flesh and blood, becoming a part of my body. They even affect my essence energy and blood vessels. Once they are forcibly removed, I fear I will die immediately. But if they aren't taken out, they will slowly eat away at my life, causing me to lose essence energy until the day I die. Right now, I am the same as Primordius in the past, living in constant pain, calmly awaiting my demise. If I must die, then I don't want to die without meaning. What Primordius wished to do, what he wished to leave behind, I am also the same. To see my bloodline live on in the world, that is more than enough for me. As the black dragon spoke to hear, it affectionately gazed at the small black dragon slumbering deep in the void. It said, help me take care of him. He is the continuation of my life. The black dragon's last few words touched the deepest emotions within Lin Ming. Because, he had also said words like these. When Soaring Feather hunted him down, when his life was in peril and death was almost certain, he had asked Xiao Moxian to look after the child in her belly, because that child was a continuation of his life. This was the instinctive response of a person in desperate circumstances. Man was always unwilling to die. But man would die no matter what. As a person approached the precipice of death, they would hope that they could leave behind something. So that when they closed their eyes one last time, they could tell themselves that their bloodline continued flowing on in the world. This intense desire, if traded for another name, could be called fatherly love and motherly love. The love of parents. In essence, that was one's hope that one's life would continue to exist onwards. This was a selfish love, but also a selfless love. A parent's love never asked to be repaid, because to them, their children living well was the greatest repayment they could ever receive. Looking at the sleeping little black dragon, Looking at the utterly exhausted dragon sovereign, Lin Ming seemed to have become aware of something new. He found another manifestation of the samsara of life and death. Children, parents, the love of parents, these three things revolved around life and death. He fell silent. The dragon sovereign told Lin Ming of his hope. He wished that every 100 years, Lin Ming would bring Little Black to the eternal demon abyss. Lin Ming agreed. Although he knew that this would reduce the dragon sovereign's remaining lifespan, this was also the dragon sovereign's greatest desire. The little black dragon slept for a full 3 days in the darkness. After 3 days, Lin Ming brought the little black dragon and left the eternal demon abyss, returning to the Sky Spill continent once more. Chapter 1947 A Single Life, 4. Chapter 1947 A Single Life, 4. By the time Lin Ming had quietly returned to the Sky Spill continent and arrived at the dark forest near the Lin Academy, 25 days had passed. There was still 5 more days until the conclusion of the forest survival course. On this day, heavy rains washed down upon the forest. In the summer, this sort of warm and humid forest often had pouring showers. In the boundless waterfall of droplets, Lin Ming scratched his head. He was planning to sneak into the forest without being noticed and then make up an excuse to rejoin the group. But he couldn't come up with a good reason. As he had a headache from thinking of a reason, he discovered that in the Lin Academy's forest, there were a massive number of soldiers wandering about. These soldiers all wore the same silver-patterned war armor. Even in the heavy rain and in the thick underbrush, they still retained their strength and their movements were as flexible as a leopard's. They were a well-trained elite unit. These soldiers each had a cultivation at the Xiantian realm or above. It had to be known that if a Xiantian realm martial artist was placed in a small sect, they would be considered an elder. Yet in Vermilion Bird Divine Kingdom, they were nothing but soldiers. These soldiers weren't part of the common military corps, but were part of the Vermilion Bird Divine Kingdom's Silver Armor Legion. Many graduates of the Lin Academy entered the Silver Armor Legion to adventure and gain experience, and the Silver Armor Legion also produced many famous powerhouses. This legion was under the direct control of the Lin family, and was considered one of the Lin family's sharpest blades. Normally, they weren't easily used. But now these people had launched a massive search through the heavily raining forest, combing every inch of the land. They shouted out for Princeton. It was clear they had been searching for Lin Ming for several days already. Seeing this, Lin Ming was a bit dazed. This matter seemed to have gotten a bit out of control. In truth, there was still 5 more days until the survival course ended. He never thought that the Lin family would use the Silver Armor Legion to search for him. This was likely because they thought he had been captured or even eaten by some vicious beast in the forest. And to mobilize the Silver Armor Legion, it was certainly his parents who had commanded this. They were worried for his safety and thus sent out the Silver Armor Legion. Lin Ming braced himself and walked out from the woods. Princeton is over there. As a silver-armored soldier saw Lin Ming, he was immediately overjoyed and began to shout out as loudly as he could. In a moment, many silver-armored soldiers rushed towards Lin Ming, gathering around him in a circle. A man wearing golden armor and with a great red cape thrown over his shoulders strode forwards. He had thick eyebrows and was towering with broad shoulders. This man was the leader of the Silver Armor Legion, Zhu Yutian. Zhu Yutian was the Lin family's son-in-law. He possessed a variation bloodline and was considered one of the top talents of the Sky Spill continent. He came from a small family background, but afterwards he was admitted into the Lin Academy due to his amazing talent and obtained extraordinary results there. Later, he was even crowned champion of the Grand Martial Artist meeting and was finally taken in by the Lin family as their son-in-law. After Lin Ming and Lin Xiaoge ascended, Lin Ming's parents had 3 more children. The one who married Zhu Yutian was Lin Ming's second sister, Lin Ping. Princeton, you've been deliberately stirring up trouble. Seeing Lin Ming safely return, Zhu Yutian didn't know just what to say. Princeton, do you know how worried Madam was in these past days? She's been too worried over you to even drink or eat, afraid that something might have happened to you. Do you know how dangerous the forests around Lin Academy are, just how many perils lurk in the dark? In the depths of this forest there are ferocious vicious beasts that even Destiny Decree Masters are unable to deal with. "You can't do something like this again," Zhu Yutian sternly admonished. Lin Ming was a bit ashamed of himself. Normally, the character he displayed was that of a boy who loved to play around. He feared that his parents probably thought he ran deep into the dark forest because he was being mischievous. Lin Ming could only apologize. He was escorted back by the Silver Armor Legion. As for Lin Mu, she had obtained the news and stood at the entrance of the dark forest. She didn't sit in her carriage but stood beneath it, anxiously looking around while a maid held up an umbrella for her. The heavy rain came down, crashing onto the umbrella with ringing sounds. Lin Mu's bangs were already matted to her forehead. She was too worried. As Zhu Yutian had said, in these past days Lin Mu wasn't able to sleep at all. All mothers of the world were like this. The more they worried over their children, the easier they thought something bad had happened. Seeing his mother wait in the rain, Lin Ming felt his heart ache a little. He had truly been anxious to see the Dragon Sovereign, but he was too young and it was impossible for him to be allowed to go adventuring. He had to take advantage of this opportunity to head out once, but he never thought his mother would be so worried about him. He ran forwards to help support the umbrella for his mother. "Little Lin, you've caused too much trouble this time," Lin Mu scolded. But although she had a harsh expression, her eyes were filled with kindness and worry. "Little Lin, are you hurt anywhere?" Lin Ming shook his head. He resolved his heart that for this life, he would accompany his parents until they reached the end of their road. He would take care of them until old age, until the end of their natural lives. Like this, the stormy commotion ended. Lin Ming thought that this minor matter would quickly be forgotten. But reality turned out differently. Because of this matter, rumors began to appear within Lin Academy and the Vermilion Bird Divine Kingdom. The approximate content of these rumors was that the Lin couple had spoiled Lin and too much. Lin himself was nothing but a useless black sheep, a wastrel who ruined his family's good name. He had a pitiful background and possessed no good points, and what was most disgusting was that he skipped all his classes and caused trouble all day long. During the survival course in the dark forest he had caused a mess, completely ruining the survival course for everyone else. If an ordinary student of Lin Academy were to have some problem during the survival course, the academy simply wouldn't do anything at all and would sum it up as a death due to training. This sort of thing happened every year at Lin Academy and several students would die. But Lin had only been missing for 20-some days, and this was enough to cause the Lin family to mobilize the Silver Armor Legion to search for him. This used up military resources and was simply making a massive fuss over nothing. Even the Academy survival course was terminated early. The survival course had only gone on for 10 days. As for the missions assigned by the Academy, only a very small number of people were able to complete them. This made it so that 99% of the students weren't able to obtain any good results. The students of Lin Academy were incredibly unhappy with such an ending. Just who did Lin think he was? He wasn't even related to the Lin family to begin with. He was nothing but a bastard abandoned by his birth parent. His talent and cultivation were the same as an average person's. In normal times, he would be nothing but a punk with no good points, a street rat wandering the city. The Lin couple not only took in such a bastard child but even allowed him to arrogantly do whatever he wished, doing all sorts of evil and nasty things. Not only was he not discipled, but the Lin couple even dragged in others to search for him. This was a clear case of injustice. It caused the Lin couple's prestige to be greatly affected. Some people even privately said that the Lin couple were nothing more than common citizens who had never seen the wider world before. If they hadn't luckily given birth to their amazing son Lin Ming, then they would have already died and turned into white bones. Even now, people were filled with thoughts that the reason they occupied their seat was only because of Lin Ming. They felt that the Lin couple shouldn't interfere with the Vermilion Bird Divine Kingdom and that they shouldn't have the right to mobilize the forces of Vermilion Bird Divine Kingdom. They should just look for some nice and quiet place to retire. These discussions, either intentionally or unintentionally, passed to Lin Ming's ears. Lin Ming frowned. During this life, his original intentions were to accompany his parents. While he honored his parents, he wanted to experience their fatherly love and motherly love, becoming more aware of the samsara of life and death. He didn't think that his careless actions would cause his parents to be criticized. Really, wherever there are people, there will be struggles. I just wanted to be a prince that didn't try to seize power, but it seems that someone has targeted me. Lin Ming didn't care what others said about him, but he wouldn't tolerate his parents being harmed. Perhaps he should consider giving suitable honor to his parents so that they wouldn't be criticized. He went to look at the Lin Academy's rankings. In order to encourage students and push them harder, an array formation stone tablet was set up in the Academy's back mountains. The most outstanding students of every class had their names engraved into the stone. In addition, the Lin Academy had done something similar to the Seven Profound Martial House and had created many examinations. The record holders of these examinations would also be written in the rankings. These rankings were looked upon by many students every day. Motivated students would even come over a dozen times a month. As for Lin Ming, he had never looked before. Today, he came to take a look. A name caught his eye. This person was called Sichu Mingyu. This name seemed to be a girl's and it often appeared on the rankings. This was because she maintained several current rankings and even had a record high. Sichu Mingyu. Lin Ming was curious. Another person named Sichu. Those of the Sichu surname often possessed a variation dantian and extremely high levels of talent. Could it be? Lin Ming casually asked one of the students standing in front of the ranking list. Who is this Sichu Mingyu? The student looked a bit unhappy to be asked this question by Lin Ming, but he didn't dare to not reply. He said, "You haven't even heard of Sichu Mingyu? She is the most splendid student from the 3rd class and is Sichu Yaoyu's little sister, Sichu Yaoyu's niece." This student's words confirmed Lin Ming's guess. It seems he wasn't wrong. Sichu Yaoyu was a genius from the Azura Divine Kingdom. She possessed an extreme violet dantian and was skilled in the darkness laws. She was crowned the most talented junior of the Azura Divine Kingdom's younger generation. When the Azura Divine Kingdom chased Lin Ming into the Forsaken God clan and forced Lin Ming into a continuous battle, Lin Ming had faced opponent after opponent until he encountered Sichu Yaoyu. Although Sichu Yaoyu was a woman, she grasped the great desolate blood halberd and engaged Lin Ming in a fierce battle. They had fought to a near standstill, but in the end Lin Ming had relied upon his body transformation technique to defeat her. Although Sichu Yaoyu at the time was older than Lin Ming by many years, it was still amazing for her to accomplish what she did. As for Sichu Yaoyu, she was Sichu Yaoyu's little sister and also possessed an extreme violet dantian. When Lin Ming returned to the lower realms in the past, he had seen Lin Xiaoge battle against her. In truth, Lin Xiaoge wasn't able to suppress Sichu Yaoyu, but Lin Xiaoge was finally able to win due to the foundation she established because of all the precious medicines used on her. Only through a competition of endurance did she win. From this point, it could be said that Lin Xiaoge had actually lost to Sichu Yaoyu. Now, Sichu Yaoyu actually gave birth to a daughter. And it was clear that this daughter also possessed an extreme violet dantian. This Sichu family really possessed far too many talents and the extreme violet dantian was passed down like this. As for himself, he seemed to have a fate with the Sichu family. Chapter 1948, A Single Life, 5. Chapter 1948, A Single Life, 5. As Lin Ming studied in Lin Academy, the rumors continued to spread. If Lin Ming let loose his divine sense, he could easily hear many people criticizing him. Others said that the Lin couple condoned the overbearingly cruel and domineering acts of their adopted son. These discussions became increasingly fierce, even rising to the level of the Vermilion Bird Divine Kingdom's ruling class. This surprised Lin Ming. A matter that he didn't think was important to begin with seemed to have been purposefully stirred up and controlled by someone behind the scenes in order to guide public opinion. Was someone targeting him? Lin Ming immediately thought this. After living for several generations of mortal lives, he would think more about everything, even things like this. Vermilion Bird Divine Kingdom was after all the number 1 divine kingdom of the Sky Spill continent, and those in power enjoyed the greatest authority of the entire continent as well as control of rich resources. If someone appeared that touched upon the benefits of these people, it was reasonable for these kinds of scenarios to appear. The situation became increasingly complex. But at this time, from the ruling class, someone stepped forwards to control the rumors. They started from several different points until the rumors began to gradually die down. Although some people were dissatisfied with Lin Ming, they had never been so blatant in their actions. The one helping Lin Ming was Vermilion Bird Divine Kingdom's Eastern King, Lin Xiaodong. Lin Xiaodong was one of Lin Ming's good brothers from his youth. When Lin Ming parted from Lan Yunyu, Lin Xiaodong had looked after him. After Vermilion Bird Divine Kingdom was founded, everyone that was close to Lin Ming, including his parents, Lan Yunyu, and Lin Xiaodong, all came here. Lin Xiaodong was given the title of king. During his youth he often accompanied his parents in business and possessed some skill in politics and communication. In addition to him being brothers with Lin Ming and their close relationship, very few people in court dared to offend him or speak out against him. While Lin Xiaodong wasn't too strong himself, he had raised some guests that were masters. They were at the life destruction realm and some of them even ranked on the destiny decree. Thus, Lin Xiaodong became someone that was able to summon storms and rains in court and possessed a considerable amount of clout. "You little brat, why don't you try to fight to give your parents a little face?" Lin Xiaodong saw Lin Ming in his own palace and punched him in the chest. In these 200 past years, Lin Xiaodong had put on a great deal of weight. He wasn't tall to begin with, and with his large elephant-like legs, he resembled an egg. Because of his stomach he couldn't even see his own toes. He maintained his health well and married 3 wives and had dozens of concubines. These concubines all had good cultivation backgrounds. In addition, he also had many maids serving him. This caused him to have droves of descendants. Currently, he had over 40 sons and over 30 daughters. He whacked Lin Ming's chest and ruffled his hair, looking like an elder teaching a junior. His eyes weren't large to begin with, and in addition to his fat stature, his eyes disappeared into slits when he smiled. He looked like a shady 30 to 40-year-old businessman. This left Lin Ming utterly speechless. He couldn't help but recall that in the past, Lin Xiaodong had been a little brother that followed his rump wherever he went. Now, Lin Xiaodong had become Lin Ming's elder and Lin Ming even had to call him Uncle Dong. Of course, Lin Xiaodong called Lin Ming's parents auntie and uncle, thus the generational rankings between them had gotten a little chaotic. But Lin Xiaodong didn't care much about this. No matter what, he didn't want a hairless little baby boy like Lin Ming to call him big brother. In these past years, Lin Xiaodong had taken good care of Lin Ming. This was because Lin Xiaodong always felt that Lin bore an uncanny resemblance to Lin Ming from the past. After Lin Ming was lectured by Lin Xiaodong, he left the Eastern Palace. He naturally didn't want his parents to be sucked into the vortex that was the struggle for power, thus he restrained himself a little and started to attend classes in earnest. On this day, the survival course in the Dark Forest was to begin once more. Because Lin Ming went missing last time, the survival course was cancelled and many people weren't able to obtain any results. This survival course was considered a make-up exam. After the tempering in the forest began, many people entered into the Dark Forest in groups of 2 or 3. However, Lin Ming went in by himself. He aimlessly walked through the Dark Forest, casually killing some small vicious beasts. The edges of the Dark Forest had many low-level vicious beasts, and these vicious beasts were all divided into further ranks. Hunting and killing vicious beasts of different ranks corresponded to different scores. In 30 days, when the survival course ended, if one could obtain a high enough score, then they would be assessed as having passed the survival course. If one's performance was outstanding, then their results would be graded from good to great to excellent depending on their score. Every year in the Dark Forest, those that passed only amounted to half the number of students. Most were good, several were great, and there was often only a single excellent student score. Lin Ming's plan was to obtain a score that was somewhere between good and excellent. He wanted to give his parents some face but didn't want his results to be too world-shocking. But at this time, he heard a loud cry in the forest. He looked deep into the forests and saw a young girl fighting with a blue-eye poison toad. This blue-eyed poison toad was one of the deadliest vicious beasts in the Dark Forest. By killing one, a student could obtain one of the necessary conditions to earn an excellent score. Lin Ming recognized this young girl. She was Situ Ming Yu. During this year's survival course, the only one who could reach the excellent rank would be Situ Ming. She was extremely similar to a young Sichu Yaoyu. She wore purple clothes and her stature was high. Her legs were long and slender and her skin seemed as luminescent as pearls, creamy and flawless. Although her expression was cold, she didn't give off the feeling of an unapproachable icy woman. Instead, she emitted the light demonic charm of an enchantress, making others feel strange upon looking at her. Even when fighting the blue-eyed poison toad, Sichu Mingya was calm, as if she were completely blended into her surrounding environment. Lin Ming and the Sichu bloodline shared considerable karmic bonds. He had completely destroyed Sichu Minyue's nation, the Azura Divine Kingdom, and even several elders of Sichu Mingyu had died in that catastrophe. Sichu Minyue's aunt and mother were Sichu Yaoyu and Sichu Yaoyao. These two women were originally the proudest heavenly daughters of the Azura Divine Kingdom. With the support of a divine kingdom behind them, their futures should have been limitless. But because the Azura Divine Kingdom was destroyed, Sichu Yaoyu and her sister were left to fend for themselves. From being proud daughters of heaven, they had fallen from their high perch in the clouds, becoming miserable royal daughters of a defeated kingdom. The difference in status had been too great. The Azura Divine Kingdom could be said to have offended many people. Sichu Yaoyu and Sichu Yaoyao were beautiful in appearance and possessed an abundance of talent, thus they were desired by some divine sea powerhouses. Some people wanted to receive them together and because of this they struggled for a long time. From this aspect, it wasn't too far off to say that the Lin family had a grudge with the Sichu family. After rounds of violent combat, Sichu Mingyu finally killed the blue-eyed poison toad. In the dark forest, her entire body was matted with blood and green mucus. Her chest lightly heaved up and down. It was clear that striking down such a powerful vicious beast had exhausted a good portion of her strength. Sichu Mingyu thrust out her sword once more, piercing through the blue-eyed poison toad's heart to ensure its demise. After she confirmed that the blue-eyed poison toad was truly dead, she turned around and coldly stared at Lin Ming. She had long ago discovered Lin Ming but didn't care much about it. She squatted down and quietly sliced open the blue-eyed poison toad's pustule-covered skin. She reached into it and plucked out a fist-sized monster core. This was a token proving she had killed the beast. Then, she looked at Lin Ming. Lin Ming could see a hint of hostility and contempt in her eyes. Although the Sichu family had fallen in these past years and had atoned for their mistakes in the past, everyone had to admit that the Sichu family produced amazing geniuses in every generation and that their bloodline was amazing. Lin Ming didn't know that Sichu Mingyu had always had an obsession in her heart. Because of Lin Ming, her nation had been destroyed. So, while she naturally hated the Lin family, she was well aware that it was impossible to overthrow them. Thus she was hoping to frontally defeat a disciple from the Lin family's direct descendants and earn back some pride for the Sichu family. It had to be known that in the past, Sichu Yaoyu had lost to Lin Ming and Sichu Yaoyao had lost to Lin Xiaoge. They were suppressed by the Lin family. But when Sichu Mingyu was finally born into the world, when she wanted to defeat the juniors of the Lin family and gain some honor for her mother, the talents of the Lin family were actually on the decline, as if they would fall apart at the first blow. Besides Lin Ming and Lin Xiaoge, the Lin family didn't produce any more extraordinarily talented individuals. Even with the support of resources, the disciples of the Lin family often only had ordinary achievements. Because Sichu Mingyu couldn't find battles she could fight, she felt as if she were punching against empty air. She had hopes that Lin An would be a little bit fiercer. This fellow looked alike to the Lin Ming that had ascended to the divine realm, so their natural talents should be at least a little bit similar. While defeating Lin Ming was impossible, defeating Lin An would be more than enough. There were even some people that said Lin An was Lin Ming's reincarnation. However, she was left disappointed once more. Lin An was simply nothing more than a playboy young master, a bag of trash. She couldn't summon even the slightest bit of interest to fight him. Sichu Mingyu put away the monster core in her hands and turned to leave. But at this time, Lin Ming's thoughts stirred. He looked far off into the distant depths of the dark forest. Sichu Mingyu couldn't feel it, but Lin Ming had discovered something strange in the air. A high-level vicious beast was approaching. For such a high-level vicious beast to appear in the dark forest, this was absolutely a disaster to the students of Lin Academy. How could this be? By any reasoning, Lin Academy should never have made such a mistake, allowing such a terrifying vicious beast to kill its way into the forest. Moreover, there was something off about this. This vicious beast was extremely fast. At this distance, the teacher sent to secretly protect him should have already discovered the change in situation. But how come there wasn't any response? Could it be? Lin Ming frowned. He swept out his sense and discovered something else. This something else caused his face to darken completely. Lin Ming's mental strength was incredibly formidable. It was so powerful that he could easily pierce through this high-level vicious beast's spiritual sea. There, within the vicious beast's spiritual sea, he discovered a martial artist's spirit mark. In other words, this high-level vicious beast was being controlled by someone else. It was a high-level martial artist's contract beast. There was someone controlling this vicious beast to enter the dark forest and kill people. And now, looking at the direction the vicious beast was headed in, it was sent to kill either him or Sichu Mingyu. As for who it was sent to kill, Lin Ming could easily guess this when he recalled the matters with the rumors earlier. So there is someone who wants to harm me. They worry that my parents favor me too much and will give more precious resources of the vermilion bird divine kingdom to me. Are they afraid that even supreme authority will be passed down to me? Chapter 1949 A Single Life, 6. Chapter 1949 A Single Life, 6. Thinking of this, Lin Ming inwardly sneered. His parents were supported with the prestige he left behind in the past, no one dared to move against them. But, there were people that would make use of his parents' lack of understanding when it came to martial skill and cultivation methods as well as their lack of understanding regarding the politics of court. These people secretly and slowly manipulated things from behind the scene, influencing the decisions his parents made. There were even those that wished to use these devious methods to obtain authority from his parents and place themselves above all others. After all, his parents were only mortals. Even with many spirit medicines helping them, they would have at most 2,000 years to live. Once his parents died, whose hands would this vast divine kingdom fall into? This was an incredibly serious issue that involved a tremendous amount of benefits. It was natural that everyone would want to eat a portion of this thick soup. As these thoughts flashed through Lin Ming's mind, he could sense that the high-level vicious beast had approached. Sichu Mingyu had originally taken 10 steps out, but then her body shook. She turned around and looked deep into the jungle, her complexion instantly changing. Fleeting fire centipede. Why would such a high-level vicious beast appear in this forest? Sichu Mingyue's expression turned to horror. This fleeting fire centipede could even kill a life-destruction powerhouse. As for Sichu Mingyu, she was only in her teens and her cultivation was at the Xiantian realm. This difference in strength was so great that she wouldn't even be enough to fill the gaps between the fleeting fire centipede's teeth. You idiot! Stop standing around and waiting for death to come. Sichu Mingyu saw Lin Ming standing in a silly daze and was left breathless. She drew out a long whip and lashed it at Lin Ming, pulling him towards her. She grabbed his hand and dragged him into the underbrush. If you don't want to die, then don't move. Sichu Mingyu covered Lin Ming's mouth, afraid that this blue-brained idiot would shake around and expose their position. Moreover, she guessed that Lin Ming simply wouldn't know what was happening, or perhaps Lin Ming might not even know what a fleeting fire centipede was. If this sort of catastrophe fell upon someone like this who possessed no skills or knowledge, they would die before they even knew it. She quickly spoke to Lin Ming with a true essence sound transmission and then flicked her fingers. A signal flare shot into the skies. This was a special signal flare issued by Lin Academy to their students to call for rescue. Upon use, the teacher responsible for rescuing students would immediately arrive. If a dangerous situation occurred, students were supposed to use this rescue flare. Sichu Mingyu didn't believe that she would be able to find any path to survive if the fleeting fire centipede found her, nor did she believe that she could outrun it. All she could do was hide as much as she could and hope that this fleeting fire centipede was only passing by and not aiming for them. Or, she could pray that they were rescued before they both died. However, Sichu Mingyu also felt the situation was strange. Why wouldn't this fellow Lin Ming have a master secretly following him to protect him? And this master actually let a fleeting fire centipede approach them. But at this time Sichu Mingyue's heart chilled, as if she had fallen into an icy lake. She stared helplessly on as the signal flare she shot into the skies suddenly broke apart. The bright lights of the signal flare seemed to be swallowed up by darkness, turning to ash that scattered away in the wind, not leaving anything else behind. Sichu Mingyu was terrified. This sort of change could only be done by someone skilled in the concept of darkness. Only the all-swallowing concept of darkness could cleanly swallow away the light of a signal flare. She suddenly realized a horrifying possibility. This possibility left her suffocating in despair. Someone wanted to kill her or Lin Ming. This person had secretly infiltrated the squad assigned to protect the students and moved against them. They even brought a fleeting fire centipede here to make it seem as if they had died during the survival course. This individual might even be some master of Lin Academy. "We have to run," Sichu Mingyu rapidly said. By this time, her palms were wet with sweat. She had already guessed that no matter who the goal of this other person was, they would kill all possible witnesses. This meant that both of them would die here. And the moment Sichu Mingyu spoke these words, the terrifying flame-colored centipede suddenly rushed out from deep in the wood. This horrifying centipede was over 100 feet long and had a carapace that was burning with flames. It let out a dreadful roar, and wherever it went trees would be shorn apart like little twigs. It was far too fast to the point of leaving one in despair. As soon as it appeared it didn't pause at all and threw itself at Lin Ming and Sichu Mingyu. It stretched out claws that were covered in poison and flames, stabbing towards them like two long spears. In that moment, Sichu Mingyu had never felt death so near like today. In desperate hopelessness, she grit her teeth and used all of her strength to slash out her sword. She didn't think that this strike would be able to do anything, but only wanted to leave behind a scar on the fleeting fire centipede, even if it was a shallow mark. This was her angry response to the unwillingness she felt in her heart. Would she die here like this? To die so quickly and inexplicably, would she not even get to know who killed her, or what their goal was? Her mother, would she be sad? All sorts of thoughts flashed through Sichu Mingyue's mind. She stared blankly on as the centipede's claws thrust towards her chest like the scythes of a death god. She watched as her soft and weak sword strike fell onto the fleeting fire centipede's forehead like a string of straw. And she almost heard the sound of her heart being pierced and her blood spraying out. But in that instant, something unbelievable occurred. The moment her soft and faint sword strike fell onto the fleeting fire centipede's forehead, a strength beyond imagination instantly erupted, as if a great sun were dawning upon the sword blade, radiating a divine light that blinded all. Sichu Mingyue's eyes shot wide open. The fleeting fire centipede had a carapace that was as hard as divine iron, but beneath this sword strike it was cut apart like tofu. A massive arc of crescent sword energy continued forwards, indomitably tearing through the centipede. The fleeting fire centipede's high-speed body seemed to be grabbed in that moment by a giant invisible hand, completely violating the laws of physics as it froze in mid-air. Then, a golden line spread out from the fleeting fire centipede's forehead and started projecting backwards. In the next moment, the fleeting fire centipede was sliced cleanly in half. Pa! Pa! The two halves of the fleeting fire centipede fell to the ground. It was only after the golden light vanished that blood began to gush out and dye the land red. As the saying went, a centipede could still move even when dead. Even if this fleeting fire centipede were split in half, it should still have a breath of life and should still have been able to violently struggle about, posing a great threat. But after being cut apart by Sichu Mingyue's sword strike, the fleeting fire centipede had fallen completely still, without the least bit of life remaining within it. As Sichu Mingyu witnessed all of this, her eyes turned as large as moons. Even her mouth that seemed to carry devilish intentions had fallen open as she was unable to believe everything that had just occurred. The scene in front of her was the same as her killing off the fleeting fire centipede, a beast that was equivalent with a high-stage life-destruction powerhouse. Of course, this was totally impossible. Sichu Mingyu had been able to clearly feel that in that brief moment, a divine strength seemed to slash down from the void. This power had melded itself onto her sword strike, thus creating the miracle she had witnessed. And the origin of this power seemed to have been behind her. She turned around and looked at Lin Ming. At this time, Lin Ming was standing a mere 3 feet away from her. There was no panic on his face, but instead only calmness. His complexion was even a little dark. His eyes were as profound and fathomless as an ice pond, causing anyone who looked into them to feel a bit of fear. This sort of coldness seemed to originate from anger. It could also be because of other reasons, but it absolutely wasn't because he was scared. When facing this fleeting fire centipede that could kill a life-destruction powerhouse, even Sichu Mingyu was flustered. However, this youth wasn't afraid at all. She didn't know why, but as Sichu Mingyu looked at Lin Ming, she felt a fearful restlessness in her heart. She never would have believed that this fellow who seemed like an idiot and acted like a diabolical young master could have such a terrifyingly steady and calm expression. She even had a feeling that this Lin An had some heaven-shaking secret. This ambush was clearly targeted at Lin An and not herself. But even though they sent out such a powerful vicious beast, their attempt to assassinate Lin An had failed. Just where had that power come from? It shouldn't have come from Lin An, right? Sichu Mingyu looked at Lin Ming and was completely unable to believe that someone like Lin An, who was younger than her, would have the capabilities to kill a fleeting fire centipede. This simply surpassed all common sense. At this time, faint shuffling sounds echoed from within the forest. If one wasn't listening carefully, then it would have been impossible to detect them. Who? Sichu Mingyue's heart felt gripped. Someone was here, and they were even a master. However, she felt that this hidden person wasn't approaching them but was running far away instead. That's right, there was that person who had destroyed her signal flare with the darkness laws. This person likely came from Lin Academy, and might even be the teacher assigned to protect them. They took part in the assassination, but after they failed they decided to flee. Although they didn't know how the fleeting fire centipede had died or who had killed it, what they knew for sure was that anyone that could kill a fleeting fire centipede with such ease could also easily kill them. This was because their strength wasn't greater than that of the fleeting fire centipede. They ran away. Sichu Mingyu didn't know what to do. She only looked at Lin Ming. She naturally wasn't able to stop him. She wanted to see what he would choose to do. Lin Ming furrowed his eyebrows together. He said to Sichu Mingyu, "Why aren't you running? What's the point of standing there like an idiot? Are you waiting for them to gather reinforcements so they can return to kill you?" Lin Ming's words were like a bucket of cold water poured over Sichu Mingyue's head. Just several breaths of time ago she had angrily shouted out to Lin Ming that he was an idiot who was standing around and waiting for death to take him. Now, these words had been returned to her. What Lin Ming said was right. The situation was currently unclear, so quickly leaving to find rescue was the most sensible choice to make. If they stayed here, then there might be more people coming to kill them. It was extremely dangerous. Just before she was about to run away, she turned to Lin Ming to ask him for some advice on who to find. After all, with the current complex situation, she didn't know who was here to kill them and who was here to save them. If she accidentally stumbled into some dangerous individual and was led into a trap, that sort of death wouldn't be justified at all. However, as she turned around, she discovered that during the brief moment of distraction just now, Lin Ming had already disappeared. Chapter 1950 A Single Life, 7. Chapter 1950 A Single Life, 7. Lin An. Where is Lin An? Sichu Mingyu looked in disbelief towards the spot where Lin Ming had just been. There was only green grass and bushes quietly shaking in the wind, and not even a little bit of Lin Ming's aura had remained. Sichu Mingyu was bewildered. She had just turned around for a mere moment. It was impossible for martial artists at the Hutian realm and below to possess such speed. Moreover, if they were to disappear that quickly, then their movements wouldn't be light either. It was impossible for them to disappear while she remained completely unaware. This sort of feeling was like Lin Ming had simply teleported away. How did he do this? Before Sichu Mingyu could react, she heard a cry of alarm from deep in the forest. In the dark forest, Song Ding flew away. Air whistled past his ears as the scenery of the forest rapidly blurred around him. He was a teacher of Lin Academy, a life destruction realm martial artist. He had encountered a mysterious person who had given him a benefit that was enough to tempt him, on the condition he would participate in the plan to assassinate Lin Ming. Moreover, he simply didn't need to do anything. The mysterious person would send the fleeting fire centipede to kill Lin Ming. The fleeting fire centipede was a high-rank opponent that not even Song Ding could defeat. If Song Ding were unable to protect Lin Ming from this centipede, then he wouldn't have to endure much guilt. He had originally thought that this matter was more or less assured. Moreover, to kill such an unpopular and useless adopted son like Lin Ming, Song Ding didn't feel much pressure. But in this situation, the fleeting fire centipede had actually been cut apart by Situ Mingyue's sword. Song Ding's first judgment of the situation was that there was a divine sea powerhouse secretly protecting Lin Ming. He found it impossible to imagine why there would be a divine sea master who would favor a pathetic wastrel like Lin Ming. But the truth was placed in front of him. Thus, he could only run away, lest that divine sea powerhouse take out his anger on him. He was terrified, so he fled at the fastest speed he could. But at this time, several hundred feet ahead in the direction he was fleeing, the void was torn open and a youth with a cold and callous expression stepped out, appearing directly in front of Song Ding. This sudden change left Song Ding frightened out of his mind. To tear open the void and teleport right in front of him, just what sort of method was this? The truth was that in the lower realms, tearing open space wasn't difficult. However, the martial artists of the Sky Spill continent had yet to reach such an understanding in the space laws. Song Ding suddenly came to a stop. All of his blood energy seemed to swell in front of him because of his nervousness. As he saw the face of the mysterious person who had appeared, Song Ding's eyes almost popped out of his head and his face twisted into something resembling a complex array diagram. You, how could it be you? Song Ding couldn't believe that the youth in front of him was Lin, and Lin's eyes were as deep as icy lakes, cold enough to freeze over Song Ding's soul. These weren't eyes that should belong to a 15-year-old. Tearing open the void and instantaneously shifting through space had been done by a youth. Then, could the death of the fleeting fire centipede also be because Lin had secretly killed it? Where could he possibly have obtained such strength? For a time, within Song Ding's mind, the usually truant and good-for-nothing playboy that was Lin began to overlap with the mercilessly indifferent Lin in front of him, one that seemed like a demon god surging with killing intent. Both versions crossed over in his eyes. Song Ding almost collapsed to the ground. How could such an absurd thing happen? A playboy young master had such deeply hidden depths. Moreover, no matter how talented he was, age was the ultimate limit. You, who are you? Song Ding felt that there was some demon hiding with Lin Ming. However, Lin Ming simply reached out an arm and grabbed onto Song Ding's throat. Song Ding was unable to budge even a little. His entire body was caged by the space laws. Who ordered you? Lin Ming's voice came from the Nine Nether Abyss, causing Song Ding to shake all over. I don't know, that fleeting fire centipede is not my contract beast. Song Ding's courage had long cracked apart. With the feeling of being imprisoned in space, he simply didn't dare to resist Lin Ming. However, he truly didn't know who it was that had given him his orders in secret. He only knew that this person wore a black cloak covering his entire body. Lin Ming coldly sneered. Whatever. I'll search myself. As Lin Ming spoke, he tightened his right hand's grip and a cracking sound shot through the air. Song Ding's neck was broken by Lin Ming. Song Ding's eyes bulged and his face distorted. Even in death, he couldn't believe that he had been killed by a 15-year-old boy. Lin Ming gently activated the magic cube. A black demonic strength covered Song Ding's spiritual sea, and all of the memories within were drawn out, sent flowing into Lin Ming's spiritual sea. Lin Ming quickly found the information he wanted. The person in Song Ding's memories was a tall and mysterious figure that wrapped himself in a black cloak. This mysterious person had given Song Ding a pill that would allow him to break into the next stage of life destruction. As for who this person was, Song Ding had no idea. Song Dong only knew that if he helped kill Lin Ming, then he would obtain another advantage. Lin Ming sneered and casually threw away Song Ding's corpse. Then, he ripped open the void once more and stepped inside, disappearing from sight. Lin Academy had sent 2 people to secretly protect him. Lin Ming certainly wouldn't let off this other person. Ca. A black spear shot out from the void, directly piercing through the throat of another middle-aged teacher who was flying away at full speed. This teacher looked down at his neck and the rain of blood gushing out from him with disbelief. He tumbled through the air, smashing into several great trees and breaking them with his momentum. Lin Ming followed the same procedure and searched this teacher's spiritual sea. But he didn't obtain any valuable information. Lin Ming frowned. In truth, he had already memorized the spirit mark in the fleeting fire centipede's spiritual sea. As long as he saw the fleeting fire centipede's master, then he would recognize him. Unfortunately, his current cultivation wasn't too high, so he wasn't able to cover the entire vermilion bird divine kingdom with his sense. Otherwise he would be able to find this mysterious stranger even amongst the countless people in the kingdom. He knew that his actions had alerted his enemy, but he didn't care. And at this time, Lin Ming's thoughts stirred. He sensed the form of a black-clothed girl sneaking through the jungle. She tightly gripped a long sword and held her breath, remaining vigilant of all her surroundings. She was Situ Mingyu. After Lin Ming instantly disappeared, she didn't leave to find help. Rather, she headed towards the location of the two teachers that had disappeared and carefully made her way forwards. She wanted to see just what had happened, and she wanted to know just what secret that mysterious youth had. Lin Ming faintly frowned. He looked at the corpse in front of him. If two teachers died here, then with this alone he wouldn't be able to conceal the truth. He waved his hand and received the corpse. Then, he tore open the void once more, taking away the other teacher's corpse also. He returned to the body of the fleeting fire centipede and threw the two corpses on top of it. Then he took out the flame seed from the dead fleeting fire centipede and set the two corpses on fire, reducing them to ashes. After finishing this, Lin Ming quietly left. The corpses of the two teachers were quickly discovered. It was believed that they were killed by the fleeting fire centipede, but as for who had killed the fleeting fire centipede, no one knew. A mysterious existence that was at least at the divine sea realm had appeared in the edges of the dark forest and slain the fleeting fire centipede with a single sword strike. How could such a matter have occurred? Moreover, one could look up information on all divine sea powerhouses in the Vermilion Bird Divine Kingdom. When Lin Academy visited each of these divine sea powerhouses to ask them some questions, the answers they obtained were all denials. If the person who killed the fleeting fire centipede wasn't amongst these people, then just who were they? The survival course ended. Situ Mingyu had obtained an excellent ranking. Lin Academy celebrated Situ Mingyu's success. Many students of Lin Academy were unbearably envious of her. For a time she rose to the heights of fame, becoming the idol of every junior in the entire Vermilion Bird Divine Kingdom. Innumerable people praised Situ Mingyu and many large influences tried to win her over. There were also many famous princes and successors of large influences who wished to propose to her. To marry such a beautiful woman and obtain a great supporter in the future, these were simply unimaginable benefits. With this, Situ Mingyu became the proudest daughter of heaven in the entire Vermilion Bird Divine Kingdom. She had so many admirers that if they lined up, they could encircle the entire 8,000-mile Black Swamp. Such limelight was nearly comparable to the little princess of Vermilion Bird Divine Kingdom in the past, Lin Xiaoge. But Situ Mingyu didn't feel even the least bit of happiness from all this attention. She was the only person who knew what truly occurred with the fleeting fire centipede. She had watched helplessly as the fleeting fire centipede was easily sundered in half by her blade. This scene replayed itself again and again in her mind, an incomparably clear memory. In addition, she knew that the two teachers sent to protect Lin Ming had fled the moment the fleeting fire centipede died. After that, Lin Ming had vanished. Then in a mere 2 breaths of time she had heard pitiful screams echo through the forest. If she wasn't wrong, then these screams were from those teachers. 2 life destruction masters had fled as fast as they could, but in a mere 2 breaths of time they had been killed. When added with the sudden disappearing of Lin Ming that occurred at the same time, Situ Mingyu came to an unbelievable conclusion. She searched for the corpses of the 2 teachers but couldn't find them. When she returned, she saw that there were 2 more piles of ashes beside the fleeting fire centipede's corpse. Without a doubt, this was intentionally done by someone. Someone had killed the two teachers and then burned them near the fleeting fire centipede's corpse so that it would look like they had been killed by the vicious beast. The academy had been misled. Who had done all of this? Was it really him? This not remained in situ Mingyue's heart. But she never mentioned the matter of the fleeting fire centipede or Lin Ming to anyone else. However, as she continued her usual classes at Lin Academy, whether she was aware or not, she would pass by areas that Lin Ming often frequented and would subconsciously search for those profound eyes. After several days, situ Mingyu saw Lin Ming. It was a beautiful sunny afternoon. On a slanted hillside of the Marshall Field, a mysterious youth was resting on the green lawn, his arms crossed behind his head. He had a blade of grass held between his lips as he welcomed the sunlight. He wore elegant and luxurious robes. Several precious treasures hung on his waist. He was handsome and refined, a youth that possessed incredibly good looks and grace. His posture indicated comfort and laziness. He seemed like a playful boy next door who loved the sunlight. Situ Mingyu found it hard to imagine that everything she saw in the dark forest was real. If those two teachers hadn't truly died, then she might have even thought she had been dreaming all this time. Chapter 1951 A Single Life, 8. Chapter 1951 A Single Life, 8. Miss Mingyu, you're here too? What a coincidence. As situ Mingyu was looking at Lin Ming, a voice sounded out from behind her. She turned around to see a 17 to 18-year-old youth in embroidered robes holding a sword and walking out from the Marshall Field. As this youth looked at situ Mingyu, his face was full of smiles. He was a prince of the sublime smelting divine kingdom. With his talent he had chances of becoming the crown prince, or at the very least being given the title of a king. He always had a favorable impression towards situ Mingyu. However, he wouldn't be someone ardently fawning over situ Mingyu. Instead, he maintained an appropriate distance so that his actions didn't seem disgusting. What is Miss Mingyu looking at? The youth looked towards the direction situ Mingyu was gazing at earlier and saw Lin Ming. Lin Ming's appearance caused the youth to frown a little. Why would situ Mingyu come to see how that wastrel playboy was doing? That fellow Lin and is a bit weird. I heard that the two teachers who died were originally sent to protect him. His teachers died but he was completely safe. Moreover, what's strange is that this fellow somehow managed to pass the survival course and obtain a great ranking result. With his current level, this is a bit suspicious. As the youth spoke, situ Mingyu frowned. She didn't reply. In that moment, an incomparably shocking idea rose up in her heart, one that she could hardly believe she thought of. Linen was so young and yet had such hidden depths. As for his true strength, it completely surpassed common sense. This was not something that could be explained by mere talent. In addition, his appearance resembled that man from the past. Was there really a possibility that Linen was the reincarnation of that person? This idea caused situ Mingyu to suck in a breath of cold air. She didn't know just what she was feeling in that moment. That person, he had returned to the Sky Spill continent. Why would he want to come back? But as these ideas raced through situ Mingyue's mind, she saw Lin Ming, who was lying on the grassy lawn, suddenly turn his head to look at her. His eyes seemed to pierce through the bustling Marshall Field, penetrating through all, shining like stars. Days passed. Years flew by. 3 years passed. Lin Ming was now 18 years old. During these 3 years, Lin Ming's strength rapidly grew. After he obtained a new life, all of the essence he had accumulated from before had been transferred to his new body. And not only did it not weaken, but instead it strengthened along with his rebirth. Thus, in terms of the mortal body and blood vitality, Lin Ming didn't need to train in those at all. Similarly, his inner world had long since been consolidated. Even when his cultivation had fallen to its lowest point, his dantian had still been an inner world and not a revolving core. Thus, bottlenecks didn't exist in Lin Ming's cultivation. As long as enough energy gathered in his inner world, then it would become as stable as the time when Lin Ming was a peak holy lord. As for the laws, there was no need to mention them. The laws he comprehended hadn't diminished in his rebirth. Rather, during these past years he had obtained many new comprehensions. Like this, Lin Ming didn't possess problems in his foundation for cultivation. His foundation was solid beyond belief. What Lin Ming needed to train in now was his state of mind. In addition to that, he needed to gather accumulations. What he required was time. On this day, as Lin Ming was quietly cultivating in his chambers, his eyes flew open and the power of his sense surged outwards, enveloping the entire Vermilion Bird Divine Kingdom. The Vermilion Bird Divine Kingdom was countless times larger than the Sky Fortune Kingdom of the past. Now, Lin Ming's constantly growing soul force and cultivation was enough to cover it all. The array formations in the various palaces of Vermilion Bird Divine Kingdom were unable to stop Lin Ming's sense. The moment that Lin Ming's sense covered over everything, some divine sea powerhouses of the Vermilion Bird Divine Kingdom seemed to sense something. Their hearts stirred, feeling as if a clear breeze had blown past them. However, their minds immediately calmed afterwards. They tried to sense what was different, but they couldn't find anything special about what just happened, thus they finally summed it up as an illusion. My ability is still far worse than before. Lin Ming shook his head. With his current level of strength, the larger the area he wanted to cover his sense with, the less ability he had to hide it. However, he wasn't worried. He was only 18 years old and had plenty of time ahead of him. The moment Lin Ming's sense covered the entire Divine Kingdom, he also monitored everyone's locations. Although this consumed a tremendous amount of Lin Ming's soul force, he still continued onwards. He considered this an exercise for his spiritual sea. During this reincarnation, what Lin Ming focused on was cultivating his state of self and cultivating his spiritual sea. He maintained this condition every day. At the start he was only able to last for a few quarter hours, but afterwards he was able to continue for 2 hours, 4 hours, and even 8 to 10 hours. Lin Ming challenged his limits again and again. His actions left him a little exhausted. During these 3 years, Lin Ming gradually obtained better results in Lin Academy so that others wouldn't have a reason to criticize his parents. From lower ranks, to middle ranks, to upper ranks, he now approached the highest ranks. As for Lin Ming himself, he became increasingly handsome. His eyes were deep and bright. His temperament was like a book that no one could put down. Sometimes he was mysterious, sometimes he was as hot as the sun, sometimes he was restrained, sometimes he was anxious. In the 4th year, Lin Academy organized a massive test. Lin Ming achieved incredibly good results and even broke the records for 2 of the tests. This left everyone surprised. No one wanted to acknowledge Lin Ming's progress, yet they had no choice but to. At the end of the 4th year, Lin Academy held a massive tournament. Lin Ming reached the finals, defeating many senior students along the way and finally obtaining a top 5 position. Lin Ming's name was carved onto Lin Academy's ranking stone tablet. Moreover, it appeared in many other places as well. This left Lin Ming's mother ecstatic with joy. During this great tournament, Lin Ming managed to shut up all those people that were looking at him with distaste. After all, only true combat strength was the real deal. In a short few years, Lin Ming had gone from a useless young master to someone who almost matched Sichu Mingyue's level. This proved that Lin Ming possessed a terrifying talent. As things stood, if Lin Ming continued on like this, then he would become increasingly fierce. He would overtake many people and then leave them behind as he finally stepped into the Divine Sea. This was just incredible. This was a bright future. Coupled with Lin Ming's handsome looks and his famous family background, many young girls at Lin Academy had a crush on him. 16 to 17-year-old girls that looked like flowers were naive and innocent. Often they would have crushes on the best-looking, most well-mannered, and most confident boy they met. And Lin Ming had all of these advantages, so it was natural for there to be such a result. In fact, sometimes as Lin Ming was wandering through the academy, there would be a brave girl that ran out in front of him. These girls would give Lin Ming a pink letter before fleeing with embarrassment and blushed faces. Slowly opening the letters, the gracefully written words were faint. The words of girls' budding interest in boys contained a shyness and youthful beating of the heart as well as tenseness and anticipation. Lin Ming accepted all of these letters in piles. He deeply recalled that during his youth, he had seen countless young masters of great families. These people all came from grand and wealthy backgrounds. Their talent was above others and their strength was amazing. Their looks were handsome and it seemed as if they were the pets of heaven, given every possible advantage. As for the frustrated men that were compared to them, those men had humble origins, their talents were poor, they lacked resources, their strength was mediocre, and even their appearances were ugly. 4 beautiful young girls in the prime of their youth, it was clear just who they would choose as their boyfriends between these two types of people. Even if they couldn't obtain the affectations of these rich young masters, they still wouldn't accept the diligent pursuit of those frustrated men. This was the emotion of youth. Lin Ming couldn't help that he once envied these young masters. He envied their high-spirited actions and their frivolous and easy youthful life. During Lin Ming's youth, although he wasn't some frustrated man, he wasn't the young master of a wealthy family either. He had to constantly struggle, to spur himself onwards, to take these young masters as a goal in order to surpass them and fight for success. Although he succeeded, he had developed a calm and experienced disposition, one that was edged with restraint. He had lost many things in exchange for that. It was only today that Lin Ming was able to experience such a life. In this Lin Academy, he was a young master. Everything he had aroused the envy of others. He felt that his youthful nature that was suppressed in the past was being thoroughly released, making him feel content. To experience the baptism of mortal life and realize the 100 tastes of life. On the road of martial arts, there were many senior supreme elders who would come to the mortal world when they experienced a brutal bottleneck. They would wander the world, feeling the life around them. They would understand these feelings and try to break through what they knew in order to reach a higher level. The present Lin Ming was also like this. However, these senior supreme elders were unable to do what Lin Ming was doing and truly walk down that road of life once more. They could only try to forget their minds and act out some role in the mortal world. But what they did didn't allow them to fully succeed. As for Lin Ming, due to all sorts of reasons, when forced into a desperate situation he had no choice but to experience this mortal world once more and walk down the winding road of life. Thus, his experience of life was much more thorough. Another year passed. Lin Ming was now 20 years old. His cultivation progressed yet again. His spiritual sea became increasingly profound and his sense could already cover the entire vermilion bird divine kingdom for 16 hours without feeling any exhaustion. If it were for a moment, Lin Ming could even have his sense cover most of the Sky Spill planet. He could extend his sense from the Sky Spill continent all the way to the Holy Demon continent. But on this day, as Lin Ming was training his sense, he suddenly discovered a person in Vermilion Bird Divine Kingdom. This person had a wisp of an aura on him, one that was similar to the one he sensed on the fleeting fire centipede he had slain years ago. Lin Ming's thoughts stirred. During the years of training his sense, he had always been looking for this person. However, because the fleeting fire centipede was instantly killed, this individual seemed to have fled the Vermilion Bird Divine Kingdom. It was clear that he was afraid of the mysterious existence which killed the fleeting fire centipede. This was why Lin Ming hadn't been able to find him yet. Now 5 years had passed and this person returned. Lin Ming locked onto this person with his divine sense. He was several thousand miles away, but his every movement and action, his cultivation methods, his cultivation base, the movement of energy in his meridians, everything was completely seen by Lin Ming. Lin Ming could confirm that this person was the fleeting fire centipede's master. He smiled. He used his sense and left a mark on this other person, just like the true divinities did to him in the past. He wanted to use this person as bait and fully clear out all those people who tried to usurp power from behind the scenes. Chapter 1952, A Single Life, 9. Chapter 1952, A Single Life, 9. Deep at night, a seemingly ordinary carriage stopped at the back doors of a luxurious and opulent mansion. The curtains of the carriage were pulled open and a mysterious person in a black cloak stepped out and walked through the door. His footsteps were light, as if he were just a ghost. He grasped a special entry token, one that allowed him unimpeded access to a chamber in the deepest depths of the mansion. Within this chamber, a 30-some-year-old man had already been waiting for a long time. This man was tall and his shoulders were broad. Beneath 2 thick eyebrows, a pair of hard eyes gleamed. This man emitted a faint killing intent. This was a presence that could only be formed by slaughtering on the road of martial arts for many years. In front of him was a decanter of wine. At this time, he held onto the decanter with one hand and was pouring the wine into a bronze cup. His hands were strong and steady, as if cast from iron. As the wine was poured from the large decanter, the cup filled to the brim with not a single drop spilling out. At this time, the front door of the chamber opened. The mysterious cloaked man from the carriage paced over and respectfully bowed to this 30-some-year-old man. "Marquis Yutian, your subordinate has returned," the black-cloaked person courteously said. This man called Marquis Yutian was the Lin family's son-in-law, Zhu Yutian. He had married Lin Ming's second younger sister, Lin Ping, and was the son-in-law of the current emperor. He had been granted the title of Marquis and commanded one of the elite forces of the Vermilion Bird Divine Kingdom, the Silver Armor Legion. Of course, the reason Zhu Yutian was able to possess such a high status was because he had a variation bloodline. He was an extremely strong and talented individual and had even become the champion of a grand martial arts meeting. 5 years ago, after Lin Ming disappeared to go to the Eternal Demon Abyss during the survival course, Zhu Yutian and the Silver Armor Legion were the ones responsible for searching for him. Millimeter. Zhu Yutian lightly responded. He waved to a seat across from him and said, "Come, enjoy this 10,000-year fog-flower wine, it is a welcoming gift for you." The black-cloaked man's eyebrows leapt upwards. He looked at the cup of wine, slightly surprised. 10,000-year fog-flower wine was extremely precious and drinking it would be greatly beneficial to a martial artist's cultivation. He apologetically said, "Marquis, this subordinate handled matters poorly. After failing to assassinate Lin and 5 years ago, I allowed the Marquis to fall into danger instead. I fled for 5 years afterwards and only returned now, so I don't have the face to drink wine with the Marquis." Zhu Yutian laughed. "If I doubted all of my subordinates, then there would be no one left. 5 years ago you failed to kill Lin An, but that was not because of your mistake but because I underestimated him. I never thought that there would be a divine sea powerhouse protecting him in secret. Although your move failed, you still managed to expose Lin An's depths to me. Luckily, when he disappeared from the survival course and I sent the Silver Armor Legion out to search for him, I restrained myself from doing anything. Otherwise, with the many eyes and ears of the Silver Armor Legion, it would have been inevitable that this mysterious person found out the truth." As Marquis Yutian spoke to hear, he coldly snorted, hateful killing intent flashing in his eyes. "Thank you, Marquis, for your forgiveness." The black-cloaked person tossed down the cup of 10,000-year fog-flower wine. Zhu Yutian smiled with satisfaction. "How is the matter that I had you attend to?" Reporting to the Marquis, this subordinate journeyed to the Holy Demon Continent and has succeeded in finding the bloodline of the previous blood slaughter steps master, the one who bears a grudge against Lin Ming from the past. This subordinate carried out a secret investigation and can confirm that over 200 years ago, the former steps master was killed by Lin Ming. Afterwards, Lin Ming became a 12-winged heavenly demon and ascended into the position of the new steps master. He planted slave seals in the bodies of many of the supervisory elders to take control of the entire blood slaughter steps. Afterwards, the bloodline of the previous steps master was forced to flee. But after Lin Ming left, they managed to develop themselves in secret. They now have a tremendous influence. Because of their family's enmity with Lin Ming, they are willing to cooperate with us. As the black-cloaked man spoke, he took out a token. "Marquis, this is a sound transmission mark that this subordinate obtained. This subordinate has already formed a communication route. By using this transmission mark, you can locate the one leading the bloodline of the previous steps master." "Wonderful." Zhu Yutian happily nodded. He took the token and swept through it with his divine sense. Indeed, this was the real deal. The Marquis' plans are truly divine. I assume that when I was sent to the blood slaughter steps, all of these plans were formed in advance. That person's parents are in the way far too often. Does the Marquis plan to do something with those 2 old geezers? As the black-cloaked person spoke to hear, he slashed his finger along his neck. Although Lin Ming had already flown to the stars over 200 years ago, these people still feared mentioning Lin Ming's name. Thus, they would only call him that person. Zhu Yutian frowned. He coldly said, "How can I possibly move against them? If those two old codgers have any problems, then if that person were to investigate what happened, I would die without a burial ground. But that doesn't matter at all. Those two idiots wander about like muddled fools. Even if I let them live, eventually supreme authority will fall into my hands regardless. As for the second prince, he is a useless degenerate that doesn't need to be feared at all. Only Lin and is still too heavily favored. My worry is that those two old fools are waiting for Lin and to grow up so that they can give him more power. Now, I don't know why, but Lin and is becoming increasingly sharp. I have to remove him as soon as possible, but I also don't know who is protecting him in secret. Ah, how troublesome. Marquis is wise. This Lin and must be killed before he has grown. Then, even if that person returns from the divine realm, he definitely won't do anything just for an adopted son of his parents. After waiting for another 1 or 2,000 years, that person's parents will also pass away from natural deaths, leaving behind all authority in Princess Lin Ping's hands. That is equivalent to the entire vermilion bird divine kingdom being under the control of the Marquis. The black-cloaked person chuckled as he thought of this, and Zhu Yutian also laughed. But at that moment, the black-cloaked man violently shook and grabbed onto the table. His eyes widened. He could feel an agonizing pain spread through his body. A cruel and sinister strength was invading his meridians, melting away his marrow. He looked at the bronze cup. Then, he gazed up at Zhu Yutian in disbelief. You. Black blood began leaking from the edges of the black-cloaked man's mouth. His lips turned pale white and sweat streamed down his body. The wine he drank just then, it was poisoned. Zhu Yutian watched with terrifying calmness. He indifferently looked at the black-cloaked person and slowly said, "Using heaven-swallowing blood, divine demon grass, mortal dragon flowers and other types of heavenly materials, this is 7 seed poison that I produced myself. It is tasteless and colorless, and I even added on a little of the poison laws I cultivate. I mixed it with the 10,000 fog flower wine. After drinking it you will lose your skills and your essence energy will deplete until you die." "But, why?" The black-cloaked person grit his teeth, glaring at Zhu Yutian with hatred, so enraged that his eyes nearly popped out of his head. The man threw back his black cloak, revealing a thin and narrow face and an expression that seemed to be dying from despair. The man's body continued shivering. Zhu Yutian drew out a sword from his spatial ring. He looked at the black-cloaked man and laughed. "You have followed me for such a long time, yet you still ask such a stupid question? You know far too many things. The powerhouse that guards Lin and might have some method to find you. If he did, the consequences would be inconceivable. 5 years ago when you failed to assassinate Lin and the reason I didn't kill you and sent you to the Holy Demon Continent was because I still had a mission for you. Now that your mission is complete, keeping you alive will only put myself in danger. That isn't a good decision at all. In order to accomplish great things, one must be merciless and cruel. Although I believe I can kill you myself, that will cause far too much movement. Since I used 7 seed poison and 10,000-year fog flower wine to serve as your funeral wine, you should be more than content to die. Don't blame me for this." As Zhu Yutian spoke, he thrust his sword towards the black-cloaked man. The black-cloaked man had already lost all his energy. This sword would easily kill him. The black-cloaked man looked at the sword with despair and hate. He waited for death to arrive. But in that instant, the death he anticipated didn't come. Rather, Zhu Yutian had frozen where he was. His sword seemed to be frozen in the void, completely unable to be moved. Who? Zhu Yutian was frightened out of his wits. This was his private hidden chamber that was protected with layers upon layers of array formations. There shouldn't be anyone able to silently sneak in here without him knowing. The only exception was if this other person's strength had reached an incomprehensible boundary. Could it be that this was the peerless powerhouse secretly protecting Lin? Thinking of this, Zhu Yutian felt a cold sweat stream down his back. And at this moment, the void in front of Zhu Yutian began to shake. A pair of jade-soft hands reached out from the void and tore open space as if it were paper. Then, a youth in robes stepped out from the void. This youth had straight eyebrows that slanted towards his temples. He looked around 18 to 19 years old. This person was the reborn Lin Ming. Seeing this face, Zhu Yutian looked like he saw a ghost. His eyes filled with disbelief. You, Lin. He could hardly believe what he saw. To locate his hidden chamber, to easily tear open the void and teleport, to ignore all array formations and even monitor his conversation, these were methods that even late Divine Sea powerhouses weren't capable of. And all of this had been done by Lin An. Lin An was a mere 20-year-old hairless little boy. Could it be that the sword strike that cut down the fleeting fire centipede was not sent by some hidden Divine Sea powerhouse, but by Lin An himself? Zhu Yutian felt his entire worldview be completely overturned in that moment. You, who are you? Zhu Yutian didn't believe that a 20-year-old boy had such abilities. Lin Ming coldly sneered. You're quite skilled. Although the Sky Spill continent and Holy Demon continent are linked together now, the two continents are still far too distant from each other and not many exchanges occur. Even so, you managed to investigate the matters about when I went to the blood slaughter steps and even found out that I killed the previous steps master. Your plans aren't bad at all. After your subordinate failed to kill me, you wanted him to flee to the Holy Demon continent and unite the evil rabble that is the previous steps master's bloodline, and then use them to subvert the leadership of Vermilion Bird Divine Kingdom? This idea of killing two birds with one stone is quite good, and your methods are also ruthless enough. You remind me a little of that Yang Yun from 200 years ago. But what a pity, you are not Yang Yun, and you fall far, far short of him. Lin Ming's words were spoken unhurriedly, but as they fell onto Zhu Yutian's ears, they were like a bolt of lightning that struck from nowhere. In particular, those words even so, you managed to investigate the matters about when I went to the blood slaughter steps and even found out that I killed the previous steps master, caused Zhu Yutian to go cold all over. Just how was this Lin An? This was clearly Lin Ming. You. Zhu Yutian shivered and his will cracked. No matter how great his ambitions were and no matter how ruthless his methods were, he couldn't summon any courage to face the legendary character in front of him. Now that he looked straight into Lin Ming's eyes, he nearly collapsed. That's right, only that person could have such abilities. And he actually thought to assassinate him secretly. Wasn't this just bringing about his own destruction? But why? Why would that person return from the divine realm? Why would they turn into a baby and slowly grow up again? Zhu Yutian could no longer understand what was happening, and at this time any further thinking stopped. Lin Ming's mental strength was like a pointed needle that stabbed into Zhu Yutian's spiritual sea. Since you are my second sister's husband, I didn't want to kill you. But you wanted to take advantage of my parents' kindness and harm them. You touched my bottom line, so die. As Lin Ming spoke, his soul force punctured Zhu Yutian's spiritual sea. Each piercing brought incomparable pain. This was the pain of having one's soul torn apart. Zhu Yutian's eyes turned wide and blank and his mouth flapped like a dying fish. Zhu Yutian wanted to cry out but he couldn't. He grabbed his neck, trying to choke himself to death. From this it could be seen just how much pain he was in. After 10 breaths of time, Zhu Yutian died. He fell onto the ground like a dead dog. And behind Lin Ming, the black-cloaked man had already seemed to have lost his soul. Lin An was actually that person. The black-cloaked man's lips shivered and his face turned white. Lin Ming used the magic cube to extract all of Zhu Yutian's memories. In that instant, all of Zhu Yutian's rebellion plans were known by Lin Ming, including the tools and materials he had hidden to start it. All of these things were hidden by Zhu Yutian in extremely secret places and could be used as evidence that he was plotting a rebellion all this time. Moreover, there was even a witness this time. Lin Ming flicked his fingers and a ball of light shot into the black-cloaked person's spiritual sea. This was a slave seal. With this slave seal, Lin Ming didn't worry that any secrets would be revealed. Lin Ming said with cold indifference, "I will give you 3 days to testify against Zhu Yutian. After that, I will allow you to die in peace. Your family and your descendants will not be implicated but will be properly placed somewhere else instead." The cloaked man knelt to the ground. Facing Lin Ming, the pressure was far too great. There simply wasn't any way to disobey Lin Ming's will. As Lin Ming spoke, his figure vanished once more. After several breaths of time he reappeared. He had collected the evidence of Zhu Yutian's plot and sent this evidence with the black-cloaked man to surrender himself to Lin Xiaodong. On this night, the capital of Vermilion Bird Divine Kingdom was busy with movement. Martial law was declared on the streets. Soldiers, elite legions, and powerful martial artists were sent to surround Marquis Yutian's mansion, and all of his people were captured and interrogated. The corpse of Marquis Yutian was found in his hidden chamber. As for the evidence that he was plotting a rebellion, that was taken by Lin Xiaodong. The matter of Zhu Yutian's assassination attempt on Lin and 5 years ago finally came out. The black-cloaked man explained everything that had occurred regarding the fleeting fire centipede and the 2 teachers. Everything that happened in the capital was watched by Sichu Mingyu. So, the one who tried to kill Lin in that time was actually Marquis Yutian. Such a person had tried to kill the useless playboy that was Lin Ming, but not only did his assassination fail, but 5 years later he himself was the one to die. Chapter 1953 A Single Life, 10. Chapter 1953 A Single Life, 10. Concerning Marquis Yutian, Sichu Mingyu was faintly aware just how much of a cold and calculating individual he was. He was a past champion of the martial arts meeting and he had many lucky chances. There were even some current records of Lin Academy that were held by Marquis Yutian. Such a strong person who had such deep plans had ended up with such a pitiful fate. The reason for this was likely because he had tried to assassinate Lin An. Sichu Mingyu couldn't imagine just how Marquis Yutian's plan to kill Lin An and stage a coup was discovered. But she believed that all of this was inevitably related to Lin An. This youth was far too mysterious. 3 days had passed since Marquis Yutian's plotting had been revealed, but the capital was still on high alert, the entire city drowned in a tense atmosphere. With the downfall of such an important figure there was bound to be a wide cleansing. All matters related to this were managed by Lin Xiaodong. Lin Xiaodong didn't slay innocents. Rather, those that were associated with Marquis Yutian were reassigned to other areas, had their authority reduced, or were even exiled to far-off outposts. This was an inevitable end. Sichu Mingyu watched all of this occur, not finding it strange at all. Over 200 years ago when the Azura Divine Kingdom was destroyed, what followed was also a wide-scale cleansing. She aimlessly walked. Then, she paused. She saw that not too far away, on a rolling hill adjacent to the Lin Academy's martial field, there was a youth holding a blade of grass in his hands, relaxing in the sun. This youth was Lin Ming. At this time, his mood wasn't good at all. Although matters had been resolved, the final culprit had been the husband of his sister, Lin Ping. The Lin Ming of this life in truth didn't have much contact with Lin Ping and his parents' other children. Deep within palace politics when matters of power were involved, affection would slowly turn cold and distant. At the same time, there would be people willing to take risks, murdering and framing in order to seize more power. Zhu Yutian might be the first for the Vermilion Bird Divine Kingdom, but he wouldn't be the last. As the Lin family grew larger and larger, it wouldn't be surprising for those who shared flesh and blood to kill each other. All of this was an unavoidable truth. Lin Ming didn't want to bother with this. In this life, all he wanted to do was quietly accompany his parents to the end of their natural lifespan. As for whether the Lin family prospered or declined, that would depend on the will of heaven. There was no family that could thrive forever. Tens of thousands of years later, when his own prestige faded, the Vermilion Bird Divine Kingdom he established might change to another name and the Lin family might revert to an ordinary family, and in truth, this might not be a bad thing. As Lin Ming was thinking this, he could feel a girl silently walking towards him. He turned to see a black-clothed Sichu Mingyu quietly arrived at his side. She wore a dress and as she sat down beside him, she looked like a proper lady. Her hands wrapped around her knees. She didn't look at Lin Ming, only quietly staring into the far-off distance. Lin Ming had long since noticed that Sichu Mingyu would sometimes appear by his side, whether it was by design or accident. Sometimes she would be quietly paying attention to him. But it was never like today where she sat right by his side. He faintly smiled but didn't speak. Like this, the two of them looked towards the horizon. The setting sun was colored like blood. The red clouds seemed completely dyed. As the glow of the sun poured down the rolling mountains, it was like the veil of a goddess, an infinitely beautiful sight. Zhu Yutian's case of treason had caused Lin Ming's parents to suffer some strain. In these past days Lin Ming had frequently appeared by his parents' side, trying to cheer up and soothe their moods. "Father, your child raises a cup in your honor." At a family banquet, Lin Ming filled a cup of wine for his father. No matter how many years passed, his father still had the same two hobbies, drinking and playing chess. "Father, mother, this time your child would like to go out for adventure," Lin Ming suddenly said at the end of the banquet. In this first new life he wanted to accompany his parents, but that didn't mean he would always be around them. He needed to leave, walk down more roads, experience more of life. "That's also good. Go out and take a look at how great this world is." Lin Fu chuckled. But Lin Mu was a bit regretful. However, in order for her child to gain more experience, she eventually nodded. Lin Ming left. This time, he was gone for 20 years. Afterwards he returned and spent 2 years beside his parents. Then, he left once more. He traveled through the Sky Spill continent and the Holy Demon continent. In the Sky Spill continent's southern wilderness, he went to the country that was founded by the two sisters, Na Yi and Na Shui. These two sisters had become the rulers of the greatest tribal power in the southern wilderness. They met and survived through a catastrophe and were bound by a common destiny. Their relationship was extremely good. Now, the two of them had aged. The older sister Na Yi had a house full of grandchildren. As for the younger sister Na Shui, she had become the most devout goddess, vowing to never marry for life. Lin Ming became a wandering seer that roamed the four corners of the world. He arrived at the two sisters' country and quickly saw Na Shui and Na Yi before leaving. "Big sister, that man." Na Shui looked at Lin Ming's back as he faded into the distance. She didn't know why, but she felt an aching pain in her heart. "What's wrong?" Na Yi looked at Na Shui in confusion. Na Shui shook her head. She lowered her head and saw a glow of blue light gather in her palm, finally condensing into a pill bottle. "He left this behind." Na Shui was stunned. She opened the pill bottle. 2 vividly green pills tumbled out. These 2 pills emitted a medicinal fragrance beyond description. Just from smelling them, they could feel their meridians clear out and their flesh and blood burn hot, as if all of their meridians were being transformed by these pills. Heavens! Just the smell alone possessed such a potent medicinal strength. It was hard to imagine just how precious these pills were. At this time, a sound transmission passed into Na Shui's mind. "Dip the pill in warm water and only drink the juice. Remember, do not directly swallow the pill. This medicine can prolong your life, help maintain your thoughts, and cleanse your marrow. It can even allow your cultivation to rise much higher and extend your lifespans by several times." Hearing these words, the sisters were completely shocked. This person, could it be? After completing these karmic ties, Lin Ming quietly left. He arrived at the Holy Demon continent. Here, he visited the Fey race. He saw Duanmu Kun, Fengshen, and Lanxin. These 3 people had partied together with Lin Ming in the blood slaughter steppes, fighting with him. They had risked their lives with Lin Ming and there could be considered some friendship between them. These 3 people had also reached the Divine Sea realm. On the Sky Spill planet, someone that could become an emperor in 100 years was a peerless genius. As for Duanmu Kun and the others, they had accomplished this in their 60s. In particular, Duanmu Kun. He was making steps towards the Middle Divine Sea realm. In his holy land, he held on to an extremely high level of authority and was slowly ascending to become the successor. Lin Ming quietly arrived, left behind lucky chances for the 3 of them, and then departed once more. This time, Lin Ming left for 100 years. He left the Sky Spill planet and freely wandered the vast cosmos of the lower realms. Sometimes he went into seclusion and sometimes he journeyed out to gain experience. Every time he went to a new place, he would settle down for a period of time. He saw different people, saw different nations. Some were primitive, some were advanced, some were poor, some were prosperous. Slowly, during this first new life, Lin Ming had reached 160 years of age. Because of his past accumulations, there were no bottlenecks in his cultivation. His cultivation had long been restored to its previous state and his strength surpassed its previous highest point. He was getting closer and closer to the World King realm. Breaking into the World King realm was an extremely important jump upwards. Thus, he wasn't in a hurry. He had plenty of time to fully prepare for it. Time passed, year after year. On this year, Lin Ming was 200 years old. Adding on his last life, Lin Ming had experienced the winds and rains of over 400 years. He planned to return to his parents and carefully cultivate for 20 to 30 more years. Then, he would begin his preparations for breaking into the World King realm. To break into the World King realm before 500 years of age, for a level of talent like Lin Ming that far surpassed the elites of the 33 heavens, this speed wasn't fast at all, and could even be called slow. But during the process of making a breakthrough, as he became more and more aware of himself, Lin Ming had obtained many, many benefits. This year, Lin Ming returned. He went to his parents' side. His cultivation was disguised at the early Divine Sea realm. He planned to start his final preparations to break into the World King realm. However, he didn't think that his parents would give him such a difficult conundrum. During the days he was gone, his parents had privately made a decision and prepared a marriage for him. And the fiancé wasn't a stranger either. It was unexpectedly Sichu Mingyu. This was because in these past years, Sichu Mingyu was far too dazzling in the Sky-Spill continent. Lin Ming's parents had taken a liking towards this girl and had already promised the matchmaker the marriage. They even met with Sichu Yaro Yaro and Sichu Yaro Yu, passing down a dowry to them. Chapter 1954, Attacking World King. Chapter 1954, Attacking World King. After Lin Ming returned from such a long period of separation, his parents were overjoyed. Lin Mu personally went to the kitchen and prepared the dishes that Lin Ming loved to eat the most during his childhood. Living in such a high position, Lin Mu rarely prepared food. It was only when Lin Ming returned that she personally cooked for him, and she even did so daily. After the meal was set up, Lin Ming quietly sat down and then said, "I will not be married." Millimeter? Why? Lin Fu and Lin Mu looked at Lin Ming with surprise. Lin Fu said, "Do you have someone you love? Why don't you bring them back and let your parents take a look at them so we'll be happy?" Lin Ming remained silent. After receiving no reply from Lin Ming for a long time, Lin Mu's eyes widened. "You don't have one? Then why won't you marry? The wife has already been chosen for you. Within the Vermilion Bird Divine Kingdom, or even the entire continent, she is the most outstanding lady that could possibly be chosen. She has countless pursuers and even the matchmaker has visited both houses. If you could marry such a nice young lady, then your mother will be happy for the rest of her days. How could you allow your mother to agree to this and then go back on our promise?" Lin Ming shook his head, leaving no ground for compromise. "Why don't you say something?" Lin Mu anxiously said. "That child Mingyu, in what area does she not match up to you? Her appearance is outstanding, her talent is good, she is clever and smart, just how could you not like such a wife? Do you really want to be alone for the rest of your life? Your big brother and big sister, who hasn't married? Your second brother even has over 100 children." In Lin Mu's mind, marrying and producing children, continuing the family lineage, that was the right and honest thing to do. Lin Ming seemed to have planned to live his life alone and this left her very worried. Lin Ming still didn't speak. Lin Mu was left grasping at straws. This family banquet did not end happily. On the next day, Lin Ming entered Lin Academy once more. After 200 years, Lin Academy hadn't changed much. On the campus grounds there were young people everywhere who dreamed their own dreams of martial arts. They all trained here, hoping to find success in the future. There were many people but none of them noticed Lin Ming. Amongst the Academy's younger generation, although many of them had listened to stories about Lin Ming, only a small number of them had seen Lin Ming's portrait. Lin Ming did the same as he did in the past. He quietly arrived on the rolling slopes near the Academy's martial field and laid down on the lawn, biting a blade of grass between his lips. He quietly experienced the bustling noise of the mortal world, tranquilly perceiving it. He lay here until the sun set. But at this time, the voice of a woman sounded out in his ears. "Sorry. I didn't mean to cause such a problem for you." Lin Ming turned to see a black-clothed Sichu Mingyu standing beneath the setting sun. The golden light fell down upon her, illuminating her and making her appear like a spirit that was dancing in flames. "When the Empress Dowager sent someone to settle this marriage with me, she didn't tell me that you didn't know about this matter." Sichu Mingyue's voice was a bit melancholic. After 200 years, her appearance hadn't changed much at all. She was still as beautiful as she was in her youth, but she gained a more mystical atmosphere around her. She had already broken into the Divine Sea realm and was making great progress towards the Middle Divine Sea realm. In the entire Sky Spill planet's martial world, Sichu Mingyu possessed a considerable status, and the Sichu family was already beginning to slowly reform. Although they no longer had their own country, they had become a top family that was dreaded by many countries. In terms of status alone, Sichu Mingyu was properly matched with Lin Ming. "I should be the one apologizing." Lin Ming shook his head. "I don't want to marry, nor will I marry." Sichu Mingyu looked at Lin Ming's eyes as if she could pierce through him and understand his deepest feelings. "Why? Because you already have a wife." Lin Ming remained silent. At this time, Sichu Mingyu suddenly lightened her tone. She calmly and clearly said, "The truth is that you really are his reincarnation." These words shook Lin Ming's thoughts. He turned to Sichu Mingyu, astonishment in his eyes. But then, he immediately calmed down. He didn't acknowledge this, nor did he deny it. There were things that had been personally witnessed by Sichu Mingyu. Moreover, in the past years, Sichu Mingyue's understanding towards the road of martial arts had become increasingly profound. She recalled the moment 200 years when Lin Ming was attacked by an assassin, and as she mulled over these memories, she thought more and more that it wasn't a divine sea powerhouse secretly protecting Lin Ming, but that it was Lin Ming himself who struck back. As for Sichu Mingyu, she contrasted her current strength with the strength of Lin Ming at the time. Then, she finally determined that the Lin Ming of that time had possessed a strength that far surpassed her understanding. Even today, Sichu Mingyu found that Lin Ming was becoming harder and harder to understand. She eventually believed the conclusion she had formed in the past, that Lin An was Lin Ming. Perhaps he had suffered some danger in the divine realm, or perhaps some other reasons, but in short, he had returned. Lin Ming's silence was seen as tacit agreement by Sichu Mingyu. Realizing that such a legendary figure was standing in front of her, Sichu Mingyu discovered that she didn't feel much fear or awe. Rather, the one in front of her was still Lin An, the youth from 200 years ago. She softly said, "I won't speak of this, and I also understand the reason why you don't want to marry. As for the marriage matter, I have already told my mother to cancel it." "Really, I'm sorry." After Sichu Mingyu spoke, she turned and quietly walked away. For a time, Lin Ming had a strangely inexplicable feeling in his mind. In particular, Sichu Mingyue's way in which she addressed his name afterwards left him feeling something peculiar. He left the martial field and returned to his parents. During these past days, his mother seemed to be depressed. Lin Ming quietly accompanied her. Year after year passed. Like this, 20 years passed. On this day Lin Ming left Sky Spill planet and rode Primordius Heavenly Palace to fly deep into some far-off planet. He wanted to break into the World King realm. World King, that was the king of a world. To an essence-gathering martial artist, the pulse condensation realm was the start of their road of martial arts. At this boundary, a martial artist formed their meridians and could draw in heaven and earth origin energy through their acupoints. When one's origin energy reached a certain degree, it would gather in their lower abdomen and form a dantian. From there, a true essence vortex would be created. From the disorderly inner energy of the Hutian realm, it would become orderly at the Xiantian realm. Then above that, when the vortex condensed into a core, that was the revolving core realm. When that core shattered and was remade, that was the life destruction realm. As for the 9 divine shifts, the 3 boundaries of Divine Sea, Divine Transformation, and Divine Lord, during this process a martial artist's dantian would become a world, forming continents, lakes, seas, heavens, and earth. After entering the Holy Lord realm, the vast earth within one's inner world would turn into a planet and the great vault of heaven would become the universe. After the Holy Lord realm was the World King realm. This boundary was extremely special. It required that a martial artist refine a real world and fuse it into their own inner world. Their own inner world would integrate the space, time, and matter of a real universe, thus obtaining the characteristics of a real world. To refine a real world, that sounded inconceivable. However, upon practical application, it wasn't so exaggerated. Worlds came in sizes large and small. The 33 heavens could be called an entire world, but a single dewdrop, a single flower petal, could also be called a world. This was what others meant when they one flower one world, one grain of sand one pure land of bliss. When a martial artist grew to the World King realm, they would refine a world that depended on how solid their foundation was and how strong they were. The stronger a martial artist was, the more solid their foundation was, then the larger the world they refined would be. Otherwise, the world they refined would be smaller. But in truth, no matter how talented a world king was, the world they refined wouldn't be too ridiculously large. Generally speaking, refining an area of dozens of miles as well as the material in space was considered quite good. Even a top talent like Emperor Sokia had only managed to refine 1,000 miles of the void. And in rumors, it was said that in the ancient past there were extreme true divinities that refined an entire planet when they became world kings. To take an entire planet, as well as the void around the planet, the origin energy within the planet, the lives atop the planet, and even some of the heavenly Tao law fragments, and then refine all of that into one's own inner world, that was a heaven-shaking feat. To achieve such a step, they either existed in the records of history or were mystical characters like Sheng Mai, the good fortune saint sovereign, or Soaring Feather. But whether or not they had managed to reach such a point, no one knew. To refine the real world in one's inner world, besides differences in size, there were also differences in strength of space, the origin energy, and the law fragments within. There were differences in all these aspects. For these things, if one could choose a higher level world, then it would be helpful to a martial artist's future road of cultivation. Of course, wanting to refine a higher level world was far more difficult. Normally, when the disciple of a great influence was breaking into the World King realm, they would choose a first-rate world to refine. This was because by doing this as opposed to refining a low-level world, it would save a martial artist time when they consolidated their boundary. And in the future they would also reach higher achievements. With Lin Ming's current foundation and strength, he didn't fear such a challenge. Rather, the higher level a world was, the larger a world was, the more it would arouse his fighting spirit. He wasn't afraid of any challenges. In fact, he wanted to verify where the limits of his strength were, and the results of his 400 years of comprehension. However, Lin Ming was in the lower realm dimension where the Sky Spill planet was located. He would have to depend on his own ability to accomplish all of this. To find a vast high-level world, wasn't that easier said than done? 3 months later. In the vast and limitless universe, brilliant stars dotted the horizon. A panorama of illusionary dreamlike colors flowed through the dark void, seeping everything in a hazy halo. The distant galaxies and blurry nebulas were like small strands of silk that wound about each other, floating an unknown distance away. They glowed soft and gentle. Lin Ming stood in this starry space, quietly feeling the vastness of the universe even as he completely opened himself to his surroundings. His mind slowly fused with the surrounding universe. His inner world opened, communing with this part of the universe. Infinite heaven and earth origin energy began gathering towards him. The plane of the lower realms simply wasn't able to withstand Lin Ming's strength. The space surrounding him had already collapsed and space storms wildly surged out. The sound of the great Tao echoed in the universe, continuing without end, as if it flowed from the ancient primordial nothingness. At this moment, Lin Ming was finally beginning his breakthrough into the World King realm. In his road of martial arts, this was an incredibly crucial stage that would directly affect his future achievement. Chapter 1955, Lin Ming's World. Chapter 1955, Lin Ming's World. Energy grew stronger. Lin Ming's body burned like a sun. The rays of light constantly transformed around him, finally forming a rainbow-colored sphere of light behind him. This sphere of light gradually evolved, becoming a massive phantom. The phantom was extremely blurry, as if it were formed from gathered fog. But even in the violent and crazy space storms, it didn't scatter at all. Lin Ming's closed his eyes. His clothes flapped around him and his hair flew upwards. The phantom behind him continued to change, finally becoming a giant cuboid. This was a thick and ancient book. This ancient book slowly opened, revealing a completely blank interior. But in the next moment, an invisible character began to emerge from nowhere, as if an invisible pen were writing on the paper. Then, the second character, the third, fourth, fifth, more and more characters were written at an increasingly quick pace. All of these writings appeared in either black or gold. If Sheng Mai were here, she would discover that these words contained the concepts of the golden pages and the black book, but there were faint differences between them. Lin Ming's books of life and death had been born from the Holy Scripture, but he had added in his own comprehensions. The phantom of this ancient book became increasingly clear. More and more words appeared within it. These words starkly contrasted gold and black, simple and plain, and yet containing a meaning that was difficult to name. They were simply impossible to understand. Rather, it should be said that these words had no definite meaning at all. They only contained different kinds of concepts. When different people read these words, they would each come away with a different understanding. Even Lin Ming was unable to accurately explain these words. This was equal to the total comprehensions of his 400-some years of life. The same life, but different feelings. This invisible pen was the unknowable fate of life. The ancient book was slowly written. This process continued for several days. Finally, the pen of fate fell one final time. In that moment, this ancient book bloomed with the brilliance of a world, as if all the light in the universe was being gathered towards this ancient book. This was an ancient book that belonged to Lin Ming, a self-created great Tao book that would allow him to climb to the peak of martial art. For a time, a horrifying vortex of energy formed. A massive amount of interstellar matter was sucked into this vortex. With the ancient book as the central point, the great Tao aura in the surrounding space was condensed to the peak. A universe's physical matter, heaven and earth origin energy, heavenly Tao laws, when these three things were joined together, they were in truth the essence, energy, and divine of a universe. Lin Ming used his strength to gather them, purifying them, leaving only their essence behind. He had already comprehended the Holy Scripture and Heavenly Sutra and understood how the great Tao rules of many worlds revolved. He knew that when a universe's matter, energy, and laws were completely gathered and essence, energy, and divine were gathered, one could breed a brand new world. When the Azura Roadmaster and the Holy Scripture Creator established their own world, they had laid down their own world laws and had used their transcendent methods to gather material and energy and then manifest their own world. Currently, Lin Ming was walking down the same path as the Azura Roadmaster and the Holy Scripture Creator. This was a bold move. Rather, one should call it a crazy attempt. This was because the Azura Roadmaster and Holy Scripture Creator had only created their own world when they had become renowned throughout the universe and their strengths had reached incomparably powerful levels. As for Lin Ming, he wanted to walk down this road as he broke into the World King realm. In the dimension of the lower realms where the power of the laws was weak and small, where matter was lacking, where energy was barren, to accomplish this here was already Lin Ming's limit. Slowly, beads of sweat formed on Lin Ming's face. Blue veins popped up on his forehead. He stared blankly on as right in front of him, a world began to slowly appear in its elementary form. In the past, when the Azura Roadmaster and Holy Scripture Creator created their own worlds, these worlds were stable to the point where they could exist for billions of years or even hundreds of billions of years, able to stand side by side with the universes of the 33 heaven. Lin Ming naturally couldn't achieve this. Even if he created his own world, it would collapse in a few dozen or 100-some years. But that didn't matter. The world he created now was only in its elementary form. Through the increasing influx of power and his own rising boundary, he could have this world continue to evolve and consolidate without end. In the future, if Lin Ming became an Empyrean or even a true divinity, It was impossible to estimate just how large this world would grow to. This was a world that was constantly evolving, constantly developing. And at this time, Lin Ming's strength had already reached a limit. If he relaxed the energy flow even just a little bit, it would cause the essence, energy, and divine of a universe that he gathered to falter and collapse, completely disintegrating. If this were to happen, then Lin Ming would likely suffer a backlash from the energy and be heavily wounded. He let out a deep bellow and summoned the power of Azura blood within him. Black scales covered Lin Ming's body. His blood vitality billowed like beams of light, boiling without end. Behind him, a tall and overwhelming black Azura phantom appeared. This Azura phantom was 1,000 feet high with thick chains that twined about its body, its entire being wrapped in dragon-thick muscles. A phoenix danced above its right arm and a true dragon wrapped around its left arm. It stepped on 9 stars. Together with Lin Ming, it held on to this newborn elementary world. This Azura phantom was the power that Lin Ming cultivated, formed from pouring in the power of the 9 stars of the Tao Palace, the strength of the Heavenly Sutra, and the blood of a true dragon and phoenix. This giant Azura pushed forwards with the momentum of a grinding pan. It slowly pushed against this newly born world, causing the essence, energy, and divine of this world to condense and condense again. With his own comprehensions of the books of life and death as the foundation of this world, with the Azura laws stabilizing and restraining it, Lin Ming had done everything he could to their limits. When his strength began to reach the point of exhaustion once more, he started to burn blood essence through the gate of life. Then, this world finally began to slowly condense. It was too small, a mere several miles in radius. Moreover, the structure of the world was highly unstable. Even an attack from a divine sea powerhouse could cause the system of essence, energy, and divine within this world to collapse and be destroyed in an avalanche of failure. After completing the creation of this world, Lin Ming had used up every ounce of energy in his body. His gaze was absorbed as he looked at this world, as if he were looking at this own child. At this moment, Lin Ming was fervently excited. He had done it. This was a world that belonged to himself, the beginning of a brand new start. From this day on, a new epoch had begun in his road of martial arts. At this time, the Azura Phantom pushed this world and thrust it directly into Lin Ming's body. The world rapidly shrunk. It overlapped with Lin Ming's inner world. In that instant, within Lin Ming, this newly created world's essence, energy, and divine superimposed with his own essence, energy, and divine. This world slowly fused together with Lin Ming's inner world. For a time, red clouds tumbled throughout space. Paths of life and death, the sound of the great Tao, all of it swirled in the starry space, creating a strange image that continued to change. And Lin Ming, in that moment, had finally broken into the World King realm. His World King realm had an essential difference from the World King realm of other martial artists. He had created a world which could grow and evolve. Currently, because the world Lin Ming had fused into himself was too small and weak, the strength that he had gained from breaking into the World King realm wasn't some drastic leap upwards. But as time passed, the world Lin Ming contained within himself would continue to expand. It would hold planets, galaxies, and eventually become a universe of its own. At that time, the strength Lin Ming possessed would be unimaginable. Lin Ming sat cross-legged in the void, meditating for several hours of time. After he restored a part of his strength, he took a single step out into the void and vanished. Lin Ming continued to tear through space, using void shift after void shift. 3 days later, a blood-red planet appeared in front of Lin Ming. This planet didn't have the least bit of life, it was a lifeless dead planet. But, this planet itself contained a massive amount of precious materials and also possessed an incredible trove of world essence energy. The volume of this star was nearly 10 times that of the Sky Spill planet. Its diameter surpassed 200 million miles. In the past 100-some years as Lin Ming wandered through this lower realm, he occasionally saw this planet and had noted its position. Originally, Lin Ming had worried about needing to refine a world when he broke into the World King realm. He thought of searching for an upper-level world to refine. But finally, Lin Ming had dropped this idea. This was because there wasn't a single world that could truly satisfy Lin Ming. Now, Lin Ming had created a world of his own. Although he couldn't refine this massive planet before him, he could actually draw in its essence energy and use it to reinforce and strengthen his own world. Lin Ming flew towards this planet. He broke into the atmosphere like a rapidly falling meteor. Bang! With a terrifying explosion, Lin Ming crashed into the planet. Lin Ming continued to drill inwards, sinking further and further into the depths of the planet. From the outer layers of the planet where it was dirt and rock, the surroundings became increasingly hot the further in he went. Rock turned into billowing magma. Lin Ming didn't care about this degree of heat. He continued to pierce through. At this time, the pressure also increased. This pressure pushed down on Lin Ming's mortal body, causing explosive popping sounds to occur. Lin Ming didn't seem to care at all. He raced all the way into the deepest parts of the Earth, that was, the core of this planet. Here was no longer magma. Rather, it was a giant core formed from rare minerals and metals. These metals and minerals were extremely good materials for forging weapons. They were formed in the massive natural furnace that was this massive planet and had been tempered under high temperature and pressure for billions of years. This was a massive trove of treasure. It was extremely solid and had been melted into a near-liquid form by the high temperature. Lin Ming plunged in, continuing to race towards the deepest part, withstanding everything to get there. Lin Ming took a deep breath. Even if his mortal body was incredibly powerful, it still wasn't easy for him to resist such an environment. He let loose his mind and sat in meditation. Slowly, he began drawing in the planet's essence energy. All of the essence energy converged into Lin Ming, nourishing the true world he had created. The growth of a world was a long, long process. So for a long time, Lin Ming could absorb essence energy from this planet to nourish his world. Chapter 1956, The End of the First Life. Chapter 1956, The End of the First Life. 50 years. 100 years. 200 years. Looking at the boundless universe above the planets, one could see the changing stars. But the truth was that they never changed. They simply traveled along trajectories that cycled with the mystical rules of the heavenly Tao. In the evolution of a planet, several hundred years was far too short, to the point that there wouldn't be any changes at all. However, in this universe, there was a giant red planet that had been experiencing world-shaking changes in the last 100 years. In the beginning, it was a young and hot planet. Its surface was covered with active volcanoes and it had an atmosphere rich in pure heaven and earth origin energy. However, as time passed, its heaven and earth origin energy began to thin. The volcanoes that dotted its surface began to erupt one last time or gradually die down. As if the energy of the star had started to dry up. In the following 50 years, this planet experienced numerous earthquakes. Massive fissures started ripping through its surface, and from these deep valleys that were hundreds and thousands of miles deep, lava slowly flowed out. After another 50 years, even the lava leaking out from these cracks started to cool. Fewer and fewer volcanoes erupted and the landscape of the planet started to dry up. This was the sign of an aging planet. Such a silence was maintained for another 50 years. On this day, the planet began to violently shake. This trembling surpassed any previous earthquake and any previous volcanic eruption. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The earth tore open and an alarmingly titanic fissure appeared. It was like a divine god was using a pair of hands to break apart the planet. Beneath this great pressure, burning hot magma and rare liquid minerals and metals gushed out, forming several 100-mile-high waves that impacted into the heavens. Beneath these rough waves, a person's shadow rushed out. From the raging sea of fire, his muscles reflected a dim red light and metallic luster. His dark long hair hung to his ankles, wrapping around his body like a silk cocoon. Besides his hair, his entire body was naked. His figure could be called perfect. His torso, his arms, his legs, his neck, all were formed in beautiful and powerful symmetry. Each muscle, each line of his body, was perfect, as if it were a work of art sculpted by some master. This person was Lin Ming. Over 200 years ago, Lin Ming had entered this planet to quietly cultivate. He breathed in the energy of the planet, nourishing himself. As Lin Ming calmly cultivated, the evolutionary history of the planet that should have lasted for billions of years was quickly reduced to a mere few hundred years. From young, it became old. In exchange for the planet's decline, Lin Ming's inner world became more stable and developed further. As the massive amount of world essence energy gathered into Lin Ming's body, his inner world grew to over 20 miles in size. He had reached the standard of most world kings, and if his inner world grew any more, he would grow increasingly strong. Lin Ming didn't stop. His figure flashed through the void and he tore open space, rapidly flying away. After this period of journeying, Lin Ming re-entered the Sky Spill planet and spent 10 more years beside his parents. After that, in the tearful eyes of his mother, Lin Ming set out once more, flying into the depths of the universe. On the road of cultivation, he didn't stand still. He recalled the position of another planet. This planet was smaller but the grade was higher. And most importantly, there were no living beings on this planet. It was a dead star. Otherwise, if Lin Ming drew out all the essence energy from such a planet, then all life living on it would die. Lin Ming arrived at his destination in another 10 days. This was a metal planet. It wasn't too large and was almost entirely made of different metals and minerals. Because this planet was too close to a sun, it was extremely hot. Even some metals melted away, forming molten streams, rivers, lakes, and even oceans. Lin Ming's figure flickered and he rushed into the metal planet. He began to absorb the essence energy of this world once more. From a world king to an empyrean, this was originally a long, long process. Even a top genius like Emperor Sokia had to use a full 10,000 years to complete this step. Lin Ming was already over 600 years old. And his cultivation at the World King realm had just begun. The road of martial artist he chose was countless times harder than any other martial artist's road of cultivation, a self-created fusion of the real world and inner world, to cultivate the universe of the world and the universe of the body, to meld together the heavenly sutra and the holy scripture. No matter how profound Lin Ming's comprehensions were, no matter how solid his foundation was, it would require an incomparably long time for him to break into the Empyrean realm. He would even be slower than most divine realm geniuses. Currently, he had yet to complete his full book of life and death. If he wanted to fuse in the Azura heavenly Tao, the difficulty of this was unimaginable. From the overlords of the ancient era to now, no one had ever managed to complete such a magnificent feat. Cultivation passed without sense of time. The road of martial arts was incredibly lonely. During long periods of seclusion, one had to withstand this loneliness. One had to make their heart and mind as calm as placid water. Although this sounded simple, people weren't rocks after all. If a mortal were to be shut into a small black room without light, without sound, without anyone else, then they would feel as if they were going crazy in 2 or 3 days. If they were locked in for 2 or 3 months, then their mind would shatter and they would thoroughly fall into insanity. Martial artists weren't like this. Their minds communed with the heavens and earth, with the universe, taking the heavenly Tao laws as a companion. Lin Ming absorbed the essence energy of the planet for a long time. He completely let loose his sense, pondering on this life without any distractions, reviewing the roads he had walked down. Over 100 years later, the energy of this planet also began to dry up. This time, Lin Ming didn't take as long. This was because his inner world had grown larger and he was able to absorb the energy of the world at a faster pace. Then, Lin Ming roamed the universe. He used the world energy of the universe to nourish his own inner world. And after he absorbed the essence energy of a planet, Lin Ming would return to the Sky Spill planet and accompany his parents for some time. Like this, time passed. Every time Lin Ming returned, it would be after dozens of years or even 100 years of absence. He saw his parents grow older. Wrinkles slowly appeared and climbed up their faces. The wear and tear of time quietly carved itself upon their appearances. Each time Lin Ming returned, they wouldn't have changed too much. But after so many times, Lin Ming's parents had already turned from the appearance of a young couple in their 30s to a middle-aged couple in their 50s. Lin Ming suddenly felt that even though he returned here for this life, he hadn't spent much time with his parents. As if this was the fate of a wanderer. Even if his parents lived lives much longer than a mortal, at the same time, the gaps of time between Lin Ming's return were also much longer than the lifespans of a common mortal. If so, then the truth was that this was essentially the same. If his parents could live to 1,600 to 1,700 years of age and he returned only every 60 years, then in the future the number of times he would return to see them could be counted on his two hands. But Lin Ming had no other choice. Every time he absorbed the essence energy of a planet he couldn't stop halfway, and he had far too many things he had to shoulder. In a brightly lit room, the windows and lattices were painted with red lacquer and the wooden bed and furniture emitted a fragrant scent. This seemed a bit similar to the arrangement of the Lin family's restaurant in the past, but the materials used to form everything were far more precious. This was his parents' bedroom. And to the side of this bedroom, there was an old willow tree. When Lin Ming first established the Vermilion Bird Divine Kingdom and Lin Fu and Lin Mu moved there, they had personally planted this tree. Now, this old willow tree had grown from a small seedling to a towering tree over 100 feet in height. Its roots were as thick and tangled as dragon claws and the bark was aged and thick. In a cool spring breeze, the branches and leaves swayed in the wind. Leaves fluttered down from time to time, falling onto a stone table set beneath the tree. Here, Lin Ming was playing chess with his father. Every time Lin Ming returned he would join his father in playing chess and drinking wine. As for Lin Mu, she would make a few simple dishes and the three people would eat a family reunion dinner. This time was also the same. In the divine realm, Lin Ming had eaten up countless heavenly materials, and many of these materials and medicines possessed the most outstanding tastes in the world. Even within the lower realms, within the Vermilion Bird Divine Kingdom, there could be food made from all sorts of peak materials. Great chefs of the imperial palace would use true essence as the stove fire and use spiritual spring water to cook, making precious dishes that overflowed with drool-worthy fragrance. But there was no food that possessed the special flavor that of the dishes that his mother cooked. This wasn't just taste, but a kind of taste, a kind of memory. These were traces left behind from Lin Ming's past. Almost 1,000 years ago when Lin Ming was a child, he loved eating these dishes at the Lin family restaurant. Even now, he was the same. Even across such a long time, Lin Mu didn't forget the types of food that her son liked to eat. Similarly, Lin Ming didn't forget the flavors of these dishes. Little Lin, when do you plan on bringing back a wife? Your mother has no other wishes in life. Lin Mu often rambled on. Suddenly, Lin Ming felt sad. He could feel that his parents' fires of life had begun to weaken. His parents were not martial artists and it was impossible for them to cultivate to the divine sea realm where they could live for 10,000 years. They had prolonged their lives with all sorts of heavenly materials, and now they would soon reach their limits. After that, they would grow old and die of old age. This was a heavenly Tao rule that no one could change. Time flowed by. Another 400 years passed. Lin Ming's parents had grown even older. If compared to ordinary mortals, they would be around 70 years of age. Their backs had begun to bend over and more wrinkles appeared on their faces. Their eyes became dirty as they stepped into the twilight of their lives. Seeing that his parents didn't have much time remaining, after Lin Ming returned, he didn't plan to leave anymore. He wanted to accompany his parents and spend the final years of their lives with them. This was also to bring this first new life of his to a full completion. Although the grand reincarnation art could allow a person to live 9 new lives, it didn't have the heaven-defying ability to lengthen a person's life by 9 times. It could reforge a person and give them the light of a new life. But it couldn't extend the total lifespan of a martial artist. Ultimately speaking, it wasn't the law of eternal life, but only a cultivation method created by the Holy Scripture creator after he comprehended the concept of life and the concept of death to their limits, created in order to draw out one's potential to its maximum. Thus, Lin Ming didn't think about how long he could live out this life. He needed to complete his reincarnation as soon as possible. Chapter 1957, Returning Home. Chapter 1957, Returning Home. Sky Fortune Kingdom, Green Mulberry City. Aged architecture, pedestrians of all kinds, sweet and savory candied fruits, fragrant teas. This was a city that had been unchanged for 1,000 years, a constant scene of peace and tranquility. Today, Green Mulberry City welcomed several unusual strangers. They were Lin Ming and his parents. After 1,000 and several hundred years, dozens of generations of people had already passed in Green Mulberry City. No one recognized Lin Ming and no one recognized his parents, but they had still heard of Lin Ming's legends. This name would be passed down for several hundreds of thousands of years. Lin Ming entered Green Mulberry City like common folk. They walked down new streets that had been renovated many times already, and these still familiar streets left Lin Ming's parents filled with emotion. They arrived at the Lin family restaurant. This was a historical landmark that had been sealed away for over 1,000 years, and was the true home of Lin Ming and his parents. Because this building had been carefully maintained by others, it still remained completely intact. However, after the glazed tiles withstood the wind and rain of over 1,000 years, they were no longer bright. The red lacquered columns and doors, even if washed and repainted several times, began to slowly turn mottled, revealing the flavor of passing years. Creak. The front door opened. What greeted one's sight was the lobby of the restaurant. The marbled blue stone ground was old, but the cleaned furniture was exactly the same as in the past. Lin Ming was able to recall the scene of him jumping about this lobby when he was a child. All sorts of people would come to this restaurant. Some would be here to drink wine, some would be here to drink tea, some would come and tell stories, some would come and play cards, some would play the zither, some would play chess. Lin Ming remembered many of those old regulars. When he ran through this lobby as a child, these people would give Lin Ming some candies to eat. Even through the years, it's still the same. Lin Mu's old eyes filled with tears. She traced the counter of the old tables as she recalled the past. Lin Fu used to stand here, wearing a loose grey cotton robe and a small felt hat. He would hold an abacus in his hands, recording numbers in the ledger as noises filled the air. As for Lin Mu, she would help in the kitchen. After every dish was finished, the waiter would bring it back and shout out with a voice full of charm, "The dish is ready." Then, with a towel on his shoulder, the waiter would set down the dish, wiping clean the table and helping brew some tea. Lin Mu, Lin Fu, as well as Lin Ming, the three of them lived in this restaurant. This was their family home. The two old parents wished to pass the final years of their life here. This restaurant was no longer open for business, but every day, Lin Mu would prepare food in the kitchen and Lin Ming would help at her side. This three-person family was happy and warm. But Lin Mu still carried a single worry with her, and that was that Lin Ming remained unmarried. Although Lin Ming could see the thoughts of his parents, he always kept his silence. On this day, a visitor came to the Lin family restaurant. A woman in a black dress looking just over 20 years old arrived. Her cultivation was unexpectedly at the late Divine Sea realm. This woman was Situ Mingyu. In the Sky Spill continent, it was incredibly difficult for a martial artist to reach the late Divine Sea realm before 1,000 years of age. "Oh, you want to ascend?" Lin Ming looked at Situ Mingyu with surprise. In truth, this was a reasonable desire. A martial artist who had climbed to the peak of the lower realms would not be satisfied with dwelling there. They would want to fly into the divine realm, seeing a broader world where they could freely spread their wings. Yes, Situ Mingyu was well aware of Lin Ming's identity. She wanted to consult with him before preparing to ascend. However, Lin Ming shook his head. "You cannot ascend." "Why?" Situ Mingyu's heart skipped a beat. She could sense in Lin Ming's eyes a type of deep and sorrow-filled emotion, one that caused her heart to shrink. The divine realm has changed. Moreover, this world was once sealed by a woman. With your strength, you cannot break through. Lin Ming sighed. Situ Mingyu was left puzzled. The divine realm had changed. The world of the Sky Spill planet was sealed. She suddenly remembered. If Lin Ming decided to reincarnate on the Sky Spill planet, was this involved with the so-called changing of the divine realm? She didn't know what it was, but she could feel instinctually that this change must have been some heaven-shaking calamity. What happened in the divine realm? Situ Mingyu couldn't help but ask. The invasion of an outside race. Lin Ming succinctly replied. He looked up to the skies, as if his eyes could see through the starry space and into the divine realm. Humanity is on the brink of disaster. This. Sichu Mingyue's eyes widened. She thought that the great change that occurred in the divine realm might be some inner strife amongst humans, but she never imagined it would be because of the invasion of some alien race. And for humanity to already be in a precarious situation. If Senior has returned to the Sky Spill planet from the divine realm, and has cultivated all over from a new rebirth, is this also related to that disaster? Sichu Mingyu asked. Lin Ming nodded. Sage Lin, your parents, they don't seem to know of your identity. Have you never mentioned it? Sichu Mingyu asked again. Lin Ming shook his head. They don't know, nor does it matter. What they feel towards me is a connection that comes from the depths of their bloodline. It isn't something that can be mistaken. I am their son and I cannot mention what I have experienced in life, otherwise I will have to tell them why I returned to the Sky Spill planet, why my wives and Lin Xiaoge weren't able to return, why I returned to being a baby. If my parents know the real situation of what is occurring, they will not be able to rest peacefully. Lin Ming quietly said. Sichu Mingyu was left disappointed. After a long period of silence, Sichu Mingyu unwillingly asked, then, is there nothing that can be done? I don't know. Lin Ming said. I will return, perhaps in 10,000 years. 10,000 years was the deadline that Lin Ming had set for himself. To comprehend and fuse the Holy Scripture and Heavenly Sutra, to grow his inner world, to dual cultivate the universe of the body and the world, all of this couldn't be done rapidly but required an extremely long period of time. 10,000 years was already far too little time. He wanted to grasp as much time as he could to accomplish all that he could. Only like this could he return to the divine realm and have a chance to struggle with the saints and the even more terrifying Soul Emperor. 10,000 years. Hearing this, Sichu Mingyu sucked in a deep breath, her expression a bit bitter and pained. For a divine sea powerhouse, living to 10,000 years was their limit. Yet, this was a time period that Lin Ming casually tossed out. His words left her wallowing in despair. If she was unable to surpass the divine sea realm, then by that time she would already be on the verge of death, or she would have even become nothing more than bones. Lin Ming could see Sichu Mingyue's thoughts. He said, you can wander to travel. This lower realm dimension consists of more than the Sky Spill planet. I can give you a spirit ship and a star chart so that you can visit other planets. Although you cannot ascend to the divine realm, freely wandering this world will still be helpful to you. At least, breaking through the divine sea won't be difficult. Lin Ming casually said. But, Sichu Mingyu still held unwillingness in her heart. She knew that if she couldn't ascend to the divine realm and was only able to wander the lower realms, then no matter what she tried she wouldn't be able to accomplish anything great. To barely surpass the divine sea realm would be her limit. She bit her lips and looked at Lin Ming. Summoning every ounce of courage she had, she deeply bowed towards him. Senior, I wonder if you can take me as your apprentice. Lin Ming was stunned. He looked at her and slowly shook his head. No. I have never taken in an apprentice and I have far too many matters I have yet to complete. I don't wish to form any new karmic ties here. The destiny of a world, cause and effect, all of these were ephemeral and unpredictable things that Lin Ming didn't want to be touched by. If he accepted an apprentice, then he would have to take on the responsibility of a master. Currently, Lin Ming didn't have the time or energy to do all of this. Listening to Lin Ming's words, deep disappointment flashed in Sichu Mingyue's eyes. In truth, she didn't hold much hope that this was possible either. She was self-aware that even though her talent was at the peak of the lower realms, in Lin Ming's eyes, it was probably nothing more than ordinary. Even if Lin Ming accepted an apprentice, he would never accept her. I'm sorry for disturbing Senior. Sichu Mingyu ruefully smiled. She deeply bowed towards Lin Ming once more and then turned to leave. But at this time, faint footsteps sounded out from behind them. Lin Mu walked down the stairs and was immediately overjoyed to see Sichu Mingyu. She called out, Miss Sichu? How come Miss Sichu is here? When Lin Ming and his parents returned to Green Mulberry City to live in seclusion, this was information that not even many high-level figures of the four divine kingdoms were aware of. Lin Mu never thought that Sichu Mingyu would actually find this place. This caused her to make some exciting associations. Sichu Mingyu hurriedly bowed as she saw Lin Mu. But by now, Lin Mu had already gently grasped Sichu Mingyu's hand and was pulling her down to sit, saying that she had to stay and eat a meal. Sichu Mingyu was helpless. She looked towards Lin Ming. Lin Ming hesitated for a moment and then slowly nodded. Like this, the family dinner started. Fresh and fragrant rice, 6 simple dishes, 4 pairs of chopsticks. Lin Fu even heated a pot of wine, pouring 2 cups to celebrate. Although the old couple had returned to their past home and their mood was very good, they always held on to some regrets. This was from the monotony and loneliness brought about by such peaceful silence. They hoped for quiet and peace even as they wished to see a lively family. Of course, if it was someone that could make their family lively, it also had to be someone that they liked and hoped to see. Sichu Mingyu was exactly such a person. A simple meal, a simple happiness. Lin Mu constantly picked up dishes to place in Sichu Mingyu's bowl, her smile both gentle and kind. Eat some more. This is the sweet and sour fish that he loved to eat the most when he was a child. Only the sweet and sour fish of our hometown is the best. From Green Mulberry River, you need to fish up a big carp that is at least 3 jins heavy. Of course, it has to be fresh, and the ingredients also need to include the finest rock sugar. Lin Mu proudly said. Sichu Mingyu knew that the he Lin Mu spoke of referred to Lin Ming and also Lin An. Lin Mu might not know that Lin An was Lin Ming, but what she knew was that the dishes they loved to eat were the exact same. Miss Sichu, this is wine that I made myself. Here, try a little. Lin Fu laughed as he spoke. Lin Ming saw the wonderful mood his parents were in. Although they had been happy these years, it had never been like today where they revealed smiles from the depths of their heart. Lin Ming's heart stirred. He let out a light sigh and came to a decision. His lips moved as he sent out a true essence sound transmission. Sichu Mingyu, you and I can be master and apprentice for 100 years, but we will normally not refer to ourselves as master and apprentice. I only need you to accompany my parents, and I will teach you cultivation methods and give you a blessing of good fortune. After 100 years pass, I will reincarnate and cultivate from nothing again, and as for you, that is when you and I part. As Sichu Mingyu was eating, her chopsticks shook. She looked at Lin Ming, at a loss for words. Chapter 1958, The Second Reincarnation. Chapter 1958, The Second Reincarnation. Sichu Mingyu stayed behind. Although her relationship with Lin Ming was only that of a master and apprentice, and one that was temporary at that, this was something Lin Ming's parents didn't know about. In fact, in the eyes of Lin Mu and Lin Fu, there was a profound significance for Sichu Mingyu to stay behind. The old couple hoped that there would be people accompanying them in their old age, but they also wished that their son would marry and live a happy and bliss-filled life. Lin Ming didn't give an explanation for this misunderstanding. The reason he asked Sichu Mingyu to stay behind to accompany his parents was because he wished to have his parents live peacefully in their old age. Most of the time he didn't speak with Sichu Mingyu. He would only pass down cultivation methods to her that were suitable for her to practice and allow her to perceive them on her own. As for pills, Lin Ming had more than enough. Every pill would be melted by her into spring water, and she would slowly drink this spring water and refine the medicine. The effects were remarkable. Sichu Mingyu used a mere 10 years to approach the divine transformation realm. The truth was that her talent wasn't too bad even when placed in the divine realm. The problem was that she lacked skilled teachers in the lower realms which had delayed her cultivation. However, this was all made up for now. Although it was impossible for her to have any monumental achievements, with Lin Ming's guidance it wouldn't be difficult for her to cultivate to the Divine Lord realm. Sometimes, Lin Ming would go out together with Sichu Mingyu. They would venture deep into the starry space, and here Lin Ming would teach Sichu Mingyu some laws and advanced cultivation methods. Lin Ming even passed Sichu Mingyu an incomplete portion of a transcendent divine might. Although he didn't have much hope that she would be able to perceive anything from it, she could at least come into contact with the great Tao laws, expanding her horizons as she obtained more inspirations. Whenever these times came, Situ Mingyue's eyebrows would bunch together as she simply wasn't able to find any clue on what to do. She was worried that Lin Ming would think she was too stupid, and she desperately hoped that she could perceive something to satisfy him. However, these great Tao traces were too complex and varied. No matter how hard she tried, it was difficult for her to become aware of anything. Lin Ming didn't say anything. He simply asked her what progress she had made and then would silently leave. Like this, 50 years passed. Lin Fu and Lin Mu grew older. But at the same time, they smiled more and more. When she wasn't cultivating, Situ Mingyu would spend the rest of her time accompanying Lin Ming's parents. She frequently went to the kitchen to help Lin Mu prepare food and would take out a chessboard to play with Lin Fu. Everything was warm and harmonious. The happiness of a whole family made up for the final regrets that the old couple felt in life. This was also what Lin Ming wanted. In this life, he wanted to give his parents peace and happiness in their twilight. For this reason, even if he had to contaminate himself with some karma, it didn't matter at all. Spring went and fall came. Another 20 years passed. Lin Fu and Lin Mu both leant on walking sticks. It became a little difficult even to walk down the street. Even so, there were no servants in their family. Every time they went to buy groceries, Situ Mingyu would help Lin Mu out of the Lin family restaurant where they slowly walked down the familiar streets. During these times, Lin Mu would walk slowly. She would take a stroll, feeling the sun on her face, feeling the joys of life. Lin Fu and Lin Mu, the two of them had tasted poverty and lived in opulence, had experienced the supreme life of being worshipped by millions and billions of people. Now in their old age, with Situ Mingyu and Lin Ming accompanying them, they felt warmth and happiness. This was their life, a blessed life. They had no regrets. 2 years later, just as summer began, on a sunny day Lin Fu and Lin Mu passed away one after another. Just before they left, their faces were filled with smiles and their expressions were at peace. They had died in bed of old age. The death of his parents also marked the end of Lin Ming's first reincarnation, one that had lasted for over 1,600 years. It marked a complete ending to this time. According to his parents' will, Lin Ming buried them in the mountains around Green Mulberry City. After death, become dust and return to the earth. This was the simple wish of most mortals. According to custom, Lin Ming set up grass houses up in the mountainside. He wore simple mourning clothes and mourned for his parents for 3 years. Situ Mingyu also followed Lin Ming. She wore white clothes, observing the mourning period together with him. They lived in 2 separate grass houses. Every day they would sweep the graves of the old couple, burning incense for them and praying for them. These days were slow and tepid. But whether it was Lin Ming or Situ Mingyu, they found an inner peace and quiet in these slow and tepid days. 3 years quickly passed. With the end of the mourning period, Lin Ming had to leave. Early one morning, the bright sun rose. The morning haze of Green Mulberry Mountain scattered and the dewdrops hanging on the grass also slowly evaporated. Lin Ming lit incense for his parents and deeply knelt on his knees, bowing down, his forehead reaching the ground. This was also his final bow. He stood up and said to Situ Mingyu behind him, "According to our agreement, our relation as master and apprentice has come to an end. You can now begin walking your own road." Lin Ming calmly said. But as these words fell into Situ Mingyue's ears, she felt infinite desolateness, infinite melancholy. There was an unspeakable feeling in her heart. She had known this day would come and she had mentally prepared for it. But when it truly came, she was at an inexplicable loss. But she was well aware that she and Lin Ming were originally 2 straight lines that never crossed. It was only because of Lin Ming's parents that they approached for a brief period of time, and that was only approaching. Then, as these straight lines continued on, they would slowly separate, gradually growing further and further apart. This was a destiny that was already decided. Regardless of what she did, it wouldn't change. Thus, she slowly nodded. Then, farewell. If we are fated to meet again. As Lin Ming spoke, he casually stepped into the void. He simply didn't need to tear open the void, but entered directly into it, vanishing from sight. Situ Mingyu stood in a daze where she was, silent for a long time. The year before Lin Fu and Lin Mu passed, Sichu Mingyu had broken into the divine transformation realm. Moreover, with Lin Ming's teachings and the support of the resources he left her, she had formed a solid foundation. It wouldn't be a problem for her to reach the Divine Lord realm in the future. But none of this, including the peak of martial arts that she had longed for in her dreams, brought her any joy right now. She quietly turned around, entering the grass house she had lived in for 3 years, and gently closed the door. Another 20 years passed. In a lower dimension of this universe, within an imperial city on an unknown planet, at some unknown time, a young beggar appeared at a city corner. He was short and his entire body was covered in dirt, but his eyes were amazingly bright. Although he was a beggar, he never begged people. He only wandered about, and this wandering continued for dozens of years. This young beggar grew extremely slowly, but because he was a beggar, no one noticed him. Until one day, he disappeared from the city. He broke into space, flying deep into the universe. This was the second reincarnation of Lin Ming. During these years, Lin Ming's mood and cultivation had become increasingly perfect. His cultivation didn't increase quickly, but his comprehensions in the heavenly Tao grew at an alarming pace. He quickly sped through the universe. Soon he reached a massive black planet. Like a meteor, he plunged deep into its core. Chapter 1959, Return to the Divine Realm. Chapter 1959, Return to the Divine Realm. The universe was profound and endless, an existence far too mysterious. It contained infinite rules of the heavenly Tao. Since ages long lost, innumerable ancient powerhouses had searched high and low, tirelessly chasing down the elusive road of martial arts. But up until now, there had yet to be a single person who completely understood all the mysteries of the universe. Not only was the universe mysterious, but it was eternal. Even when great worlds collapsed and returned to nothing, the universe as a whole would continue to exist. No one knew where these eternal skies started or where they would end. Time was the most terrifying reaper of all life. But to the heavenly Tao of the universe, this concept held no meaning at all. 1,000 years was only a flash of time, so short that there would be almost no change in the universe. However, when it came to mortal society and their nations, in several thousand years there would be hundreds of generations of people. Dynasties would fall and others would rise in their place. The great families, sects, countless lives were born and returned to nothing. Their convoluted history would be buried in the sands of time as they were slowly lost forever. In the end, the only thing these people would leave behind in the world was nothing. To the vicissitudes of time, things remained the same, but people always changed. One wintry afternoon, a person and a large black vicious beast appeared outside an ancient city. This city had been renovated countless times, but many edges and corners of it were still engraved with the wearing of the years. Outside the city, people were bustling. These people came and went, fear in their hearts as none of them dared to approach. Even so, they stretched out their necks, curiously looking on. This man wore black clothes and his body was as straight as a spear. His looks seemed carved by a saber, containing an indescribable flavor. As for the vicious beast beside him, that was what attracted the most attention. It looked like a giant wolf, but there was a single black horn that thrust out from its head, making it look like a mythical dragon. This man and beast were Lin Ming and the small black dragon. After 1,000 years, Lin Ming had completed his third reincarnation and had stepped into his fourth. As for the black dragon, it had grown and its appearance was restored to its original state. If it desired, its body could grow to thousands of feet high, towering like a mountain peak. During his fourth reincarnation, Lin Ming returned to the Sky Spill planet and came to Green Mulberry City once more. Green Mulberry City still existed, but its name had changed. It was no longer called Green Mulberry City but was now called Sky Province. The walls here had developed further outwards and the roads had been expanded. In the center of the city, a grand imperial palace had been erected, emblazoned in gold and jade. Green Mulberry City had long become the capital city of Sky Fortune Kingdom. In fact, Sky Fortune Kingdom had already changed dynasties, and this was not the first or second time either. The deterrence of Lin Ming's name made many countries not dare to invade the Sky Fortune Kingdom. But this didn't mean that the royal family of the Sky Fortune Kingdom wouldn't be changed. A coup, a cruel and witless ruler, all of this could cause the downfall of a dynasty. Now, the royal family of the Sky Fortune Kingdom was no longer surnamed Yang, but was surnamed Ju. The Sky Fortune Kingdom was no longer called that either, but was now referred to as the Great Ju Dynasty. In order to stabilize the destiny of their nation, the royal family of the Great Ju Dynasty decided to move the capital city to Green Mulberry City and change its name to Sky Province. The royal family believed that since Lin Ming once lived in the city, it would surely have a glorious destiny and would shelter the foundation of the Great Ju Dynasty for 10,000 years. Towards this, Lin Ming no longer cared at all. He now had no more worries. He constantly journeyed out, refining his inner world. He grew stronger and stronger. But during his fourth reincarnation, Lin Ming felt his cultivation reach a bottleneck. This was the transition from an ordinary world king to a great world king. The truth was that if Lin Ming desired, it wouldn't be difficult for him to forcefully break past this transitionary phase. But he wanted everything to be done perfectly. Thus he made a decision. That was to go to the Azura Road and complete the final trial. He had wandered through the lower realms long enough. It was time to leave. However, in order to break out from the world that the Sky Spill planet was located in and go to the Divine Realm, he would have to take a great risk. Moreover, he had to break through the barrier that Sheng Mai left behind. In the past, Sheng Mai had left her barrier above the skies of the Sky Spill planet. The array eye was naturally located here too. This array formation blocked out the space channel in the lower realm dimension that connected the Sky Spill planet to the Divine Realm. "Let's go, little black." As Lin Ming spoke, he soared upwards. His body turned into a keen blade that pierced through the deep blue skies. As for the black dragon, it also followed Lin Ming. Like this, man and beast turned into two beams of divine light that broke past the atmosphere of the Sky Spill planet and arrived in space. This part of the void didn't seem unusual at all. But as Lin Ming lightly touched it, it rippled like a rock thrown into a lake. Then, a giant array formation appeared. This array formation was similar in appearance to a giant yin-yang diagram. One half was gold and the other half was black, representing the concepts of life and death. In the samsara of life and death, Lin Ming already had his own comprehensions. After a moment of silence, he faced the giant array diagram. He thrust out his finger again and again, each thrust causing ripples to spread through space. With each thrust, an invisible pen seemed to paint images atop this giant array diagram. This process continued for a quarter hour of time. Then, the array diagram trembled, becoming increasingly bright and transparent, as if it were turning to mist. Seeing this, Lin Ming took in a deep breath. The array formation had been unraveled. He stared at the void behind the array formation and slowly opened a space channel. His appearance gradually changed and his temperament and aura became completely different. Lin Ming used the bodily rebirth technique. After comprehending the concept of life, when he used this secret technique, he could change his life aura, becoming an entirely different person. Not just that, but in the past Sheng Mai had drawn out most of Lin Ming's soul source, and because Lin Ming's soul had gone through the grand reincarnation art and had gained a new life, during this process of rebirth his soul fluctuations had also faintly changed. He could truly have been said to have been reborn both inside and out. This was also the reason he dared to return to the Divine Realm before his strength had fully matured. After finishing, Lin Ming stepped forwards, passing through the array formation as if walking through a screen of blue smoke. The array formation that Sheng Mai left behind wasn't moved at all. The Sky Spill planet's upper space channel was filled with all sorts of chaotic energies. But to the current Lin Ming, these chaotic energies were no different than a calm breeze. It was just that as he rapidly shuttled through the space storms, his heart wasn't calm. He knew that once he reached the end of this space tunnel, he would finally see everything that had happened in the Divine Realm after thousands of years. This was something he had always wished to know, but also something he was afraid to find out. Space transformed. Lin Ming felt as if he passed through a thin membrane of water. As he stepped into these familiar yet strange starry skies, all sorts of emotions bloomed in his heart. This starry space, it was this starry space again. But the aura of it seemed to have changed. He knew that what he would see were likely scenes that would leave him feeling sad. He couldn't restrain the feelings in his heart. He tore open space and began using the Great Void Shift. First, he wanted to go see Divine Dream Heavenly Palace. Although he knew what had likely happened, he wanted to lay witness to it with his own eyes. He didn't know what happened to Mu Qianyu, Qin Xingxuan, Xiao Moxian, his child, Mo Eversnow, Empyrean Divine Dream, Empyrean Vast Universe. Were they safe? After ascending to the Divine Realm, Lin Ming could complete the journey to Divine Dream Heavenly Palace using less than 20 days. But Lin Ming actually spent a full 2 months. During these 2 months, he swept his sense over many places. He saw many planets that had been destroyed. Their bodies had collapsed, turned into nothing but countless fragments. Beneath the gravitational pull of the remaining mass, they turned into a belt of ring-like fragments that aimlessly floated through the cosmos. Besides these planets, the sects that had been destroyed were even higher in number. Many sects were annihilated along with their spirit mountains and celestial islands. From cold and tragic ruins, Lin Ming could imagine just what it was like when the saints invaded. With a true divinity leading them, humanity was no match for the saints. Those top elites that managed to escape were barely able to flee in time. But as for General Holy Lands, they were undoubtedly instantly destroyed by the Saint Empyreans. For an Empyrean, eliminating an ordinary Holy Land was the same as kicking down a sand castle. Countless elites of humanity had died tragically in this catastrophe. As for those that were left behind, they were only ordinary human citizens. There were far too many of these people. They numbered in the trillions of quadrillions and were spread through the 3,000 great worlds of the divine realm as well as the countless small worlds and medium worlds. It was impossible for the saints to kill all of them. But as long as they severed the martial arts inheritances of humanity, then these mortals would have no strength to resist, just like common domesticated animals. They would be reared in cages and enslaved. Finally, Lin Ming arrived in the part of the universe where Divine Dream Heavenly Palace was. Although he had already been mentally prepared, as Lin Ming saw the place where Divine Dream Heavenly Palace had been, he still fiercely shook. The scene before him left him moved, but in his emotions was also a trace of sadness. Divine Dream Heavenly Palace was no longer here. This was also within reason. If Empyrean Divine Dream were still alive, she would definitely bring Divine Dream Heavenly Palace away with her. But in the former site of Divine Dream Heavenly Palace, all of those grand and glorious mountains that were full of spiritual energy and exquisite planets were now completely taken over by the saints. This was a land that contained a tremendous amount of resources and heavenly materials and was a treasure trove rich in heaven and earth origin energy. The saints naturally wouldn't destroy it. A sect of the saints was established here and saint disciples entered in and out. This sect was prosperous and had inherited the millions of years of accumulations of Divine Dream Heavenly Palace, and was now using it to nourish itself. They had enslaved the spirit beasts that were raised on the celestial mountains of Divine Dream Heavenly Palace, forcefully taming them into mounts and contract beasts. The mineral mines and medicinal fields were also wildly developed by the saint sect. All sorts of heavenly materials were plundered from the ground. As for the human martial artists, they were either slain or taken in as slaves. They were used as miners, servants, janitors, or even taken in as living furnaces. 1,000,000 miles away, Lin Ming watched all of this. He stood there for a long time and then quietly left, leaving not a single trace of himself behind. In the vast and boundless starry space, Lin Ming turned into a beam of light that fled full speed into the universe. He gripped his fists so hard that his nails dug into his flesh. He told himself, everything that had been lost would be returned twofold. Chapter 1960, Re-entering the Azura Road. Chapter 1960, Re-entering the Azura Road. Regardless of what calamity occurred in the 33 heavens, the Azura Road hadn't changed. As for the human, saints, and spiriters here, They seemed to live independently from their kin in the 33 heavens, without much overlap or contact between them. Lin Ming's Azura command had already shattered, so he was unable to use it anymore. He found the spatial entrance into the Azura road that Empyrean Divine Dream had led him to in the past, and used his own strength to sink into the Azura road. When Lin Ming re-entered the Azura road, he discovered that amongst its trial challengers, the saints had rapidly increased in number. In the outer Azura road, Lin Ming observed that many young saint elites passed in and out of the large cities. It seemed that during the time he was gone, the great influences of the saints had dispatched their disciples en masse into the Azura road. The saints had revealed their ambitiousness. Lin Ming didn't bother with any of this. Currently, the Azura road's final trial had yet to open. Lin Ming quietly waited in the Great Desolate. He sank deep into the Great Desolate. Here, he felt the power of the world of the Azura road. Deep underground, Lin Ming could feel that the Azura road world was actually somewhat similar to his own inner world. Could it be that the Azura road world that the Azura Roadmaster had created in the past was also his own inner world? This thought immediately flashed through Lin Ming's mind. Just how difficult would it be to accomplish something like this? However, he also believed that in the distant future, he would be able to take this step too. The world power within the Azura road was potent and vigorous. However, because it was locked in by the constraints of the Azura Heavenly Tao, it was incredibly difficult for Lin Ming to absorb any. Lin Ming composed himself and began to quietly perceive the composition of the Azura road world. With the guidance of the Azura Heavenly Tao, it wasn't difficult for Lin Ming to accomplish all of this. Perceiving all of this was a slow process. Lin Ming focused himself, becoming enraptured with the process. In the blink of an eye, dozens of years passed. Lin Ming obtained many new enlightenments. He fused all of these comprehensions into his growing inner world. And at this time, the opening of the final trial also approached. Lin Ming left the Great Desolate and ventured into the inner Azura road. In order to attend the final trial, one needed a qualification token. The last time Lin Ming entered the final trial, he had obtained a qualification token from Mo Bright Moon. If one wished to obtain a qualification token, the process would require a tremendous amount of energy and time. Although it wasn't too difficult to the current him, Lin Ming didn't want to waste this time. His strength was already great enough that he could blatantly storm into a sect and recklessly wrest away a qualification token. Late at night, Lin Ming floated high in the air, letting his sense spread out in all directions. He covered a large region of the inner Azura road and soon discovered an influence that was located near the Azura Sea. This was a group that belonged to the saints. And they were the saints of the 33 heavens. Among them was someone that possessed a qualification token. Even though they had carefully hidden away the token, they still couldn't escape Lin Ming's sense. Lin Ming sneered. He silently descended like a dark ghost of the night. This group of saint martial artists was still meditating in their holy palace. But outside of the holy palace, there were some people standing guard. Those standing guard had spread out their divine sense, completely covering a surrounding area of 100 miles. But when Lin Ming arrived, he didn't alert them at all. Pa! With a faint sound, one of the sentries wobbled and slumped to the ground. The other saint martial artists were alarmed. They rapidly rolled up from their sleep and were about to draw weapons from their spatial rings. But at this time, there was a loud explosion. The defensive barrier of the Holy Palace had been smashed apart. Soon after, one of the people amongst them felt a strong breeze rush against him. A black beast rushed forwards like a demonic hellhound, crashing into his chest. Pang! This person flew backwards, smashing against a wall and vomiting a mouthful of blood. His organs had all been crushed apart in this single strike. Damn it! Amongst the group of people, a great world king roared out. He was clearly able to see the vicious beast that had attacked them. This unknown vicious beast looked like a black wolf with a single long horn jutting out from its head. But, what was most terrifying was the master of this vicious beast. Of the 10+ people present, no one was able to clearly see his appearance or catch his position. He was like a death reaper, mercilessly harvesting lives. Every time he flickered, he didn't leave behind any fluctuations of the space laws. Even so, he floated in the air and disappeared into space, vanishing without a sign. This degree of law comprehensions had reached an unimaginable level. Moreover, this other party had a terrifying strength capable of ripping apart the Holy Palace's protective barrier. This left the saints drowning in despair. Scatter and flee. Inform the sect and request backup. The Great World King sent out sound transmissions. However, halfway through his sound transmission came to a halting stop. He was the last saint martial artist to die. This saint race squad consisted of 12 people, and all of them were killed off by Lin Ming. Looking at the corpses around him, Lin Ming was silent. Before, he would never kill innocents. Those he had killed had already stepped onto the road of death. But this time he killed 12 saint martial artists in a single breath, also no news would be leaked out. Even though his identity wouldn't be revealed even if news of him had leaked out, Lin Ming had to guard against all possibilities, no matter how small they were. Lin Ming felt no psychological burden in killing these people. This was because when it came to a war between races, there were no innocents. Lin Ming flicked his finger and shot out a fireball. All of the corpses burned away, and with the breeze of the night, their ashes faded. He found the token he wanted. The other useless things were all destroyed. The Holy Palace was also taken away by Lin Ming and all other traces of his appearance destroyed. After finishing all of this, Lin Ming flew up, disappearing into the night like a bat. The final trial's location was deep in the inner Azura Road. This was a boundless sea called the Azura Sea. The Azura Sea was limitless and fathomless. Even if a massive planet like the Sky Spill planet were to sink into the Azura Sea, it would be completely submerged. In such a deep sea, the pressure at the seabed was unimaginable. By any common reasoning, there was no seabed that could withstand such tremendous pressure. The reason the Azura Sea could still exist was because of the power of the Azura laws. At those terrifying depths, innumerable horrifying sea beasts were bred. Among them were many sea beasts equivalent to an Empyrean in strength. In the rumors it was said that deep in the Azura Sea, there were 1 or 2 true divinity-level super sea beasts that had been bred. They were the king of all sea beast. Because of these stories, very few people dared to enter the Azura Sea. The only exception was if the final trial was beginning. On this day, the usually lonely Azura Sea began to greet many guests. Many influences gathered at the Azura Sea. On the surface of the Azura Sea, many great figures spread out viewing platforms that floated above sea level. Many martial artists rushed here from all over the Azura Road, gathering to bear witness to such a grand occasion of the Azura Road. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Deep within the sea, the waters separated. A blue whale as large as a mountain emerged from the sea waters. As it rose up, countless streams of water fell down from its titanic body like waterfalls. For a time, the viewing platforms on the sea surface were wildly swept up by the waves created by the blue whale. Many young martial artists on the viewing platforms stumbled around, unable to stand steady. Hey, that's North Heaven Palace's Deep North Leviathan. That is North Heaven Palace's destiny-stabilizing god-beast. Although its bloodline is a bit flawed, it is still a fortress that is much stronger than a half-step Empyrean. I never thought that North Heaven Palace would send the Deep North Leviathan here to shake up the scene. Someone said from the viewing platforms. As they spoke, the giant blue whale called the Deep North Leviathan opened its huge mouth. From its mouth, a blue curtain of light appeared. The disciples of North Heaven Palace were shrouded in this blue light. They all wore the uniform of a sect and bloomed with heroic dashing. From their dignified appearance, one could see that they were the elites of their sect. In truth, most of these people only came to see the world and broaden their horizons. They wouldn't truly be entering the final trial. After all, there was a limited number of qualification tokens. North Heaven Palace really laid out their capital this time, but they can't be blamed for doing so. During these past years, the saints from the 33 heavens outside the Azura Road have sent far too many elites in here. It sort of feels as if they are trying to make a show of some kind. Because of this, competition for the final trial has also become more intense. This time, I heard that the 33 Heavens Saints have sent many high-level figures here. Many of those people come from the Good Fortune Saint Palace. Upon mentioning the name of the Good Fortune Saint Palace, dread flashed across the faces of the martial artists from the Azura Road. Many great figures who rushed here from all over the Azura Road also frowned. The master of Good Fortune Saint Palace was also the supreme leader of the saints, the Good Fortune Saint Sovereign. The Good Fortune Saint Sovereign was simply too terrifying. According to rumors, he might have become the #1 master of the 33 heavens. He had fused together with some strange and horrible monster, obtaining unparalleled power in exchange. As everyone spoke, a resonant phoenix cry echoed out in the skies. A bird that resembled a phoenix flew towards this area. On the back of this bird sat an old woman dressed in a phoenix robe and wearing a golden crown. She leaned on a golden walking stick and exuded a rich and opulent aura. Her eyes seemed to contain a great pressure, making it difficult for others to feel at ease. And behind this woman were several beautiful young women. Each one had a face covered by a thin veil, looking like goddesses that descended to the mortal plane. Grandma Goldwind, an inner Azura Road Empyrean. After seeing this old woman, many people were stunned. The Azura Road's final trial was a grand occasion, but it was still a tempering experience for juniors. Most of the time Empyrean-level characters wouldn't attend, but would send their direct disciples to manage the situation. With the arrival of Empyreans, that signified just how valuable this final trial now was. Grandma Goldwind personally led her disciples to the final trial. It looks like the limelight of the 33 Heavens Saints has been too bright these past years. The native influences of the Azura Road are unwilling to fall behind them and are willing to fight more. I fear this final trial will also be set atop the winds and waves. I wonder if anyone will be able to achieve an 80% completion rate. It's not impossible. Amongst the young elites that the Good Fortune Saint Palace dispatched this time, there might be some people capable of this. As everyone was speaking, no one noticed a black-clothed, common-seeming youth quietly standing atop a viewing platform. He was like a grey brushstroke amongst this world, completely out of sync. At some time, he suddenly turned his head and looked into the horizon of the Azura Sea. He felt that someone he recognized had arrived. Chapter 1961, Famine's Avatar. Chapter 1961, Famine's Avatar. In the distant horizon of the Azura Sea, a young man in golden armor slowly flew forwards. This gold-armored youth was tall and broad. A fire-red cloak was thrown over his back, his momentum spirited and daring. His cultivation had reached the peak of the Great World King realm, approaching the half-step Empyrean realm. This cultivation, when placed in the grand scene of the final trial's opening, wasn't considered much at all. Moreover, there were more than Great World Kings but even true Empyreans. But as this youth appeared, the eyes of those in the audience shrank. It was clear that they were extremely afraid of this gold-armored youth. "It's really him," Lin Ming muttered. This gold-armored youth was someone he was familiar with, the Good Fortune Saint Sun. The Good Fortune Saint Sun's cultivation speed was far higher than Lin Ming's. But this was also within reason. First, the Good Fortune Saint Sun had lived longer than Lin Ming, and secondly, the laws that the Good Fortune Saint Sun cultivated were infinitely simpler than Lin Ming's. With Lin Ming having reincarnated also, although he didn't experience any bottlenecks returning to his previous cultivation realm, it still delayed him by a great deal of time. The Good Fortune Saint Sun, he actually came. Lin Ming thought. In truth, he also wanted to find an opportunity to kill off the Good Fortune Saint Sun, but now was not the right moment. At this time, Lin Ming's complexion changed. From beneath the Good Fortune Saint Sun the sea began to stir, a storm rising up. Violent fluctuations of energy emanated outwards. Dreadful waves swept over the world. A giant spherical blood-red life form rose up from the sea, its appearance like a scarlet sun. From all over this bloody sun, the sea water boiled away. Water vapor evaporated all over, massive layers of clouds forming in the skies. Following this, a horrifying momentum rushed out. Even the god beast that had arrived at the Azura Sea felt fear. It shrank backwards, filled with dread for this bloody sun. This is. Many Azura Road martial artists were stunned. Most of them had never felt such a terrifying aura before. And amongst these people, even the originally silent Lin Ming felt a cold sweat seep out of his forehead. He almost tore through space to run away. No one was more aware than him of just what this blood-red ball was. It was the abyssal demon, famine. How is this possible? Lin Ming was panic-stricken. Why would famine appear here? Did the good fortune Saint Sovereign also come? Lin Ming held his breath. If the good fortune Saint Sovereign arrived, then his bodily rebirth technique would truly be challenged. After all, Lin Ming had once fought against the good fortune Saint Sovereign. He didn't have any hopes that a newly reborn body would be able to deceive the sense of the good fortune Saint Sovereign. Millimeter? Something's wrong. Immediately, Lin Ming's thoughts stirred. Over half of that blood-red ball had appeared above the horizon. From the radius of the blood-red ball, the total volume was clearly far smaller than famine had been before. Famine's true body was over 10,000 miles in diameter, as large as a planet. But this blood-red sphere was only several hundred miles in diameter. Moreover, although the aura of this blood-red sphere was similar to famine's, it was much, much weaker. It was clearly not the true famine. And, the good fortune Saint Sovereign wasn't atop this blood-red sphere. The one controlling it seemed to be the good fortune Saint Sun. This small crimson sphere, could it actually be famine's descendant? Lin Ming immediately thought. His heart chilled. Famine was already an incredibly terrifying existence. If it was able to produce descendants, he simply didn't want to imagine that. Famine's attribute was to swallow all. If it were to continue without end, then even the entire universe would be swallowed up by it. What is that thing? On the Azura Sea, many people wondered with trembling hearts. For many of them this was the first time they had lain eyes upon such a terrifying life form. In their original opinion, god-beasts were already the supreme vicious beasts of the entire universe. Although legends said that deep within the Azura Sea there were one or two super-beasts that could compare with true divinities, legends were only legends, no one had seen them before. But currently, this terrifying thing could even cause a god-beast to draw back in fear. Was this a terrifying existence on the level of a true divinity? It is famine. On a luxurious sea platform, Grandma Goldwind slowly spoke. As she looked at famine, a strange light glittered in her eyes. Lin Ming turned his head and listened. For all these years, he had been absent from the divine realm for far too long and didn't know what state the saints were in. He also didn't know how strong the good fortune Saint Sovereign had become. Famine. From the legends, the avatar of the good fortune Saint Sovereign? A small number of martial artists from the Azura Road had also heard about the good fortune Saint Sovereign. The destruction of the divine realm, the defeat and withdrawal of the human race, these were events that reverberated through the 33 heavens. In addition, many saint martial artists had recently come to the Azura Road. Thus, many of them knew just what kind of character the leader of the saints was. They also knew of his avatar, Famine, who came from the dark abyss. It is more accurate to say that what is before us is only Famine's avatar. In the last 1,000 years, Famine has swallowed far too many things. It has swallowed massive amounts of resources, life essence, soul essence, and has begun to breed its own avatars. With this, it can swallow things even faster, growing even faster. Grandma Goldwind muttered. Lin Ming's face darkened. Swallowed many things. Resources. Life essence. Soul essence. These things could only have been from the divine realm. When the god-lamenting wall began to weaken and the great calamity approached, it was even possible that the good fortune Saint Sovereign had raised up a great war that swept through the divine realm and ancient races, all in order to provide food for famine. Where would the saints have found so many things to feed famine? It was naturally impossible for the good fortune Saint Sovereign to ruin his own race, thus he could only choose to invade other universes. After understanding this, Lin Ming gripped his fists and clenched his teeth. In this calamity, countless people had died in battle within the divine realm. Innumerable sects had been turned to dust, their inheritances lost to time. Many people had been swallowed and their souls absorbed, forced to become a part of famine. This was a truly tragic way to die. It was even likely that those humans who survived would be raised by the saints and used as fodder to feed famine. With the saints suppressing humanity, the human race would suffer the fate of eventually degenerating into farm animals. Understanding this, Lin Ming's eyes suddenly became icy cold. He looked towards the good fortune saint sun who was flying in from the distance, and hid the murderous intent bubbling in his heart. At this time, the good fortune saint sun stood tall above Famine's back, a light grin on his face. In that peak battle against Lin Ming in the past, the good fortune saint sun had suffered an excruciating defeat, ending in the greatest frustration of his life. But afterwards, when the saints invaded the divine realm, the good fortune saint sun had commanded the armies to trample over the 3,000 great worlds of the divine realm. Most Empyreans had either fled or died. The good fortune saint sun could be called invincible, knowing no loss. He recklessly galloped over the universe, overbearing, as if no one in the world could topple him. His confidence that was shattered by Lin Ming was also restored as he found the thrill of revenge. His cultivation would need at most 2,000 more years to break into the Empyrean realm. Moreover, the good fortune saint sovereign had even let him control one of Famine's avatars. As long as he could raise this avatar and fuse together with it, then his strength would reach an unimaginable boundary. At that time, besides a few people in the entire 33 heavens, who could stop him? In this situation, the good fortune saint sun's thoughts were incomparably smooth. He had been ordered to preside over the smelting trial of the good fortune saint Palace's junior disciples. He stepped onto the Azura Sea stage with cocky vigor, using Famine's avatar to make a high-profile appearance that deterred all present. The good fortune saint sun was satisfied with the effect he created. In his opinion, those who possessed absolutely formidable strength should expose that strength and/or everyone, making them submit. The saints already possessed such capital. The high-spirited good fortune saint sun didn't notice that on one of the viewing platforms, a black-clothed youth was gazing at him. Although this black-clothed youth's eyes contained a horrifying killing intent, what was unusual was that no one sensed him. This was because the boundary of his soul force had far surpassed all others present. No one was able to sense him. Let's begin. Today is the stage of my race. Only my race will be the main lead of this final trial. The good fortune saint sun raucously laughed. Many native influences of the Azura Road saw the good fortune saint sun's rampant behavior and wanted to refute him, but they couldn't summon the energy to do so. Their influences truly couldn't compare with the good fortune saint palace. At this time, from beneath the good fortune saint sun's feet, the flesh and blood of famine began to slowly split up like a pomegranate being torn apart. From within it, a group of young saint elites appeared. These young saint elites had been sent from the good fortune saint palace. They were a special squad of disciples sent to participate in the final trial. As for the good fortune saint sun himself, he would not be attending the final trial. This time he was only a host. Chapter 1962. The final trial opens. Chapter 1962. The final trial opens. After a few thousand years, the juniors of the past are now responsible for important missions. An elder from the inner Azura Road looked at the good fortune saint sun and spoke with deep emotion. To these rulers that lived for such a long time, several thousand years was nothing more than a blink of an eye. However, to geniuses on the level of the good fortune saint sovereign, a few thousand years was enough to have them grow to a terrifying boundary. The good fortune saint sun and his group stepped down from Famine's body. The good fortune saint sun waved his hand and an opulent sea viewing platform appeared out of thin air, large enough to accommodate all disciples of the good fortune saint palace present. Looking at the young elites from the good fortune saint palace, many people couldn't help but admit that the good fortune saint sovereign was truly terrifying. The good fortune saint sovereign had an amazing inside background to begin with, and now that the saints had defeated humanity and plundered a massive amount of resources, could the good fortune saint palace have faintly become the #1 sect of the 33 heavens? Many Azura Road martial artists looked at the good fortune saint sun, the fear in their eyes deepening. But at this time, winds whipped up once more. The clouds in the skies parted and a giant blue lotus floated downwards. Above this lotus flower stood a woman with an ethereal making. This woman wore a water blue dress that perfectly contrasted against her figure. Her appearance wasn't remarkable, but even so, as she stood amongst a throng of female martial artists, she stood out from them, unique and singular. Her slender eyes and pale skin gave off a feeling just like the blue lotus behind her, a subtle and nearly imperceptible taste. However, when Lin Ming saw this woman, his mind shook. He noticed that on this woman's uptied hair, 3 beautiful feather plumes were inserted. These 3 feathers seemed to be hairpins, but as Lin Ming saw them, they had an unusually deep significance. These feathers carried with them a familiar feeling. Rather, one could call it an unforgettable feeling that was carved into his bones. That was, Soaring Feather God King. In the past, it was Soaring Feather God King that chased down Lin Ming and forced him into a dead-end road with no path to take. Finally, he was forced to escape into the Azura Road, and as a result he was tricked by Sheng Mai. Its fairy blue lotus, Soaring Feather God King's direct disciple and also her number 1 disciple. Fairy Blue Lotus and the Good Fortune Saint Sun have both arrived. Out of the 4 marvels of the saints, 2 are present. The limelight of the saints is too great. Elite after elite is born amongst their ranks, and there isn't another race that is capable of comparing with them. This smelting trial has become their stage. Soaring Feather God Mountain as well as the Good Fortune Saint Palace, they might take up all the benefits in this final trial. Compared to the saints, the spiriters have been too quiet lately. Everyone wildly discussed. But Lin Ming noticed a few words in particular, the 4 marvels of the saints. Who are the 4 marvels of the saints? Lin Ming asked in a low voice. Oh, you don't know? The saints' 4 marvels are the 4 most outstanding true divinity disciples of the saints. They are the Good Fortune Saint Sovereign's direct disciple, the Good Fortune Saint Sun, Soaring Feather God King's direct disciple, Fairy Blue Lotus, and Astral Vault God King's 2 direct disciples, High Sun and Dark Moon. The saints have so many young elites? Lin Ming asked, glancing at Fairy Blue Lotus. Her cultivation was at a half-step Empyrean, even higher than the Good Fortune Saint Sun's. This mysterious woman caused Lin Ming to pay particular attention to her. The one who spoke said, "The truth is that the most terrifying of the 4 marvels are the Good Fortune Saint Sun and Fairy Blue Lotus. As for High Sun and Dark Moon, they just barely match up with them. High Sun and Dark Moon both have Empyrean cultivations and rely on the superiority of their cultivation to be listed amongst the 4 saint marvels. In fact, their strength can be considered slightly higher than that of the Good Fortune Saint Sun and Fairy Blue Lotus. Thousands of years ago in the Great War between the saints and humans, the 4 saint marvels earned tremendous numbers of military merits. In particular, High Sun and Dark Moon exterminated many human sects and even killed off human Empyreans. The 2 of them had already grown by that time, but as for the Good Fortune Saint Sun and Fairy Blue Lotus, them growing was something that only happened in the last 1,000 years. The person chattered away. As Lin Ming listened, he quietly maintained his composure, secretly recording High Sun and Dark Moon's names in his heart. He took a deep breath and asked again, "Has humanity perished? I've been in seclusion in the Azura Road for so many years, but before I came I also heard about humanity's situation. It seemed that all their peak masters died in battle." Haha. I'm not too sure about that. The person shook their head. I heard that the humans found a way to pierce through the God-lamenting wall that separates the 33 heavens and fled. But the saints seem to be chasing them down even now. It's just a matter of time until they are all destroyed. I heard that humanity once produced an unrivaled genius, if I remember. His name was Lin Ming. Didn't he also die? This proves that humanity's destiny has come to an end. If they can't even keep their own geniuses alive, just what future do they have left? Oh, Lin Ming, I've heard about him too. Did he really die? Lin Ming's thoughts stirred. This was an extremely important matter to him. If the saints truly believed he died, then he would feel much safer. It's true, I swear. The person saw Lin Ming's doubtful gaze and responded with a bit of dissatisfaction. I heard that a true divinity of the saints personally acted in order to eliminate Lin Ming and prevent any future problems from arising. With a true divinity personally hunting him down, do you think he would still be alive? I heard rumors that if Lin Ming hadn't died, he might have been able to grow up fast enough in the near future that he could threaten the good fortune saint sovereign. In my opinion, that is just babbling nonsense. History never has ifs to begin with. If you die, becoming nothing at all. Thank you. Lin Ming faintly responded. He learned a bit more information that concerned him, but he was still worried about the retreat of humanity. But at this time, a raging storm was set off in the Azure Sea. A vast and boundless aura appeared from nowhere. Violent fluctuations of energy rose up from all over and dreadful waves shot into the air. In the skies, dark clouds gathered, as dark and dense as liquid ink. Faintly, azure dragons seemed to rush between these clouds. These weren't real dragons, but were horrifying energy flows that had gained spirituality. Billowing thunder followed. The deafening thunderclaps seemed as if they could break apart the heavens. Lin Ming knew that the final trial was finally opening. Ha ha. The good fortune saint sun laughed. He suddenly looked at Fairy Blue Lotus and said, Blue Lotus, I originally thought that those I brought today would wrap up this entire final trial, but I didn't think that your soaring feather god mountain would also decide to join in on the fun. How about we have a little competition? The various influences of the saints competed against each other. The three god kings of the saints weren't harmonious to begin with, and their direct disciples, the four Saint Marvels, were also so. If you want to compete, then let's compete, Fairy Blue Lotus lightly said, thinking little of it. Behind her stood 4 young disciples, 3 men and 1 woman. Without exception, all of them had a feather mark on their head. At this time, a giant crack appeared in the void. A surface appeared like a pitch-black pool with endless arcs of lightning glistening within. The crack rapidly expanded, drowning away the world and the sea. Countless runes of the great Tao appeared, carrying a vast power of chaos that gushed outwards. This terrifying strength tugged at everyone's blood vitality and divine soul, making it impossible to approach this fissure of space and time. But several bold and daring young elites actually flickered, their bodies disappearing as they rushed straight into this space and time crack before it fully opened. Their figures flashed. Like winding dragons, they passed through the arcs of thunder. Most of these people came from soaring Feather God Mountain and the Good Fortune Saint Palace. In the fierce onslaught of thunder, their movements were calm. Amongst them, there was a fat person who stopped in the storm. He looked towards the 4 disciples of soaring Feather God Mountain and sly smirked, the corners of his round face curling upwards. Then, his figure flashed and he dove deeper into the horrifying storm. They've already gone in. Many people looked at the mystical and unknown world that lay behind that massive space crack, unable to go forwards. It was only when the thunder gradually died down did martial artists fly into the entrance of the final trial, sinking into the black crack. As for Lin Ming, he joined the waves of people, looking extremely common. From the time he came here to the time he flew into the space crack, no one had noticed him. After all young elites with the trial qualifications had entered the final trial, the Good Fortune Saint Sun slowly flew away. Behind him, Famine's avatar gradually emerged upwards from the sea. It stretched out a thick blood dragon tentacle that wrapped around the Good Fortune Saint Sun. Then, Famine's flesh and blood split and the Good Fortune Saint Sun sunk into it in front of everyone's eyes. After the Good Fortune Saint Sun entered Famine's body, Famine sank deep into the sea, isolating out everything outside. The Good Fortune Saint Sun wore a red cloak as he stepped on a path made from Famine's flesh and blood. Slowly, he arrived at the core of Famine, where there was a room formed from its body. This room was wide and spacious. The furnishings were elegant. There was a soft rug of red feathers and an ancient wooden bed covered with sheets woven from threads of divine silkworm silk. On the side of the bed, there was wine made from heavenly materials. But this room was permeated with the scent of blood. The ground also wriggled, making one feel uncomfortable. The Good Fortune Saint soon walked into this room and took out an array formation jade slip. He crumbled it in his hand. The light of the array formation faded and a blurry face appeared in the air. This face contained a pressure beyond description, almost impossible to look at head-on. This was the Good Fortune Saint Sovereign. As the Good Fortune Saint Sovereign's face appeared, the originally overbearing Good Fortune Saint Sun became meek and respectful. He politely bowed and then stood up. Was there a problem? The Good Fortune Saint Sovereign's voice was as cold as metal, without any emotion at all. Reporting to Your Majesty Sovereign, everything is going well. The final trial has begun and those from Soaring Feather God Mountain have also appeared. Besides them, there is no one else worthy of attention. Your child will surely complete the mission you have handed down. Millimeter, the Good Fortune Saint Sovereign thought for a moment. That woman Soaring Feather shouldn't know the circumstances of why you are there. This time, the result of the final trial is secondary. That thing must be found, no matter the cost. Understood. The Good Fortune Saint Sun solemnly replied. But at this time, the Jade Slip Array formation had already shattered to nothing and the Good Fortune Saint Sovereign's phantom disappeared. After the light faded away, the Good Fortune Saint Sun took a deep breath. Not only must he complete this mission but he also had to make sure the disciples of the Good Fortune Saint Palace bloomed in glorious splendor, so that they took all the benefit. Chapter 1963, Entering the Gate of Laws. Chapter 1963, Entering the Gate of Laws. This was the second time Lin Ming had entered the strange world of the final trial. This was an ancient ruin that the Azura Roadmaster had left behind. Lin Ming had undergone several reincarnations and now with his cultivation greatly increased, as he stepped into this place once again, what he felt was even deeper than before. He could even faintly feel that he shared some bloodline relation with this world. Who? Lin Ming could feel his own inner world breathing, and this breathing tempo seemed to have some inexplicable connection to this final trial world. And from the surrounding space, faint traces of remnant world power began to spontaneously merge into Lin Ming's inner world, causing it to rapidly grow far faster than it did in the past. The Azura Heavenly Tao is truly mysterious beyond compare. Lin Ming was well aware that the Azura Sutra cultivated the world of the universe. In terms of creating a world and developing a world, the Heavenly Sutra was much more useful than the Holy Scripture. Now, he paused in this final trial world, feeling the remnant world power nourish his own inner world. To be able to receive such a benefit was naturally because of the heaven-defying qualities of the Azura Heavenly Tao. Lin Ming quietly embraced this feeling and slowly moved forwards. But at this time, there was a loud roar as several giant Daotai phantoms hurtled towards Lin Ming. These were spiritual beings created by the final trial's array formation and were also the protectors of the final trial. Lin Ming thought little of them. He allowed the Daotai phantoms to leap onto him. But in the next moment, Azura runes fluttered out from Lin Ming's body and covered these Daotai phantoms, immediately causing them to vanish. Then, the heavens and earth spun around and Lin Ming was sent to a different world. This world was covered by a vast canopy of forests, and in these forests were great beasts. Lin Ming swept out his divine sense, immediately locating their strength and position. All of this was the test of the final trial's first level. This was a test with no handicap. It didn't look at skeletal age, cultivation, or comprehension of laws. All it tested was one's absolute strength. If one was weak, then no matter how lofty their talent was they wouldn't be able to pass. In the past when Lin Ming was at the Divine Lord realm, he had easily crossed this first level test. Now, at the peak of the World King realm, crossing this first level was easy. He didn't even need to enter the forest like the first time and temper himself within. He stopped in front of the forest and closed his eyes. Before him, in his mind, the forest had already disappeared. All that remained in its place was an inexhaustible number of Azura runes. For Lin Ming, no matter how great the scenery was or how powerful the beasts were, he could instantly see through to their essence. They were all things condensed from the laws. He heard a strange rumbling coming from the array formation. These were incomparably pure fluctuations of Azura energy, gently trembling. The array formation absorbed these fluctuations of energy to continue revolving. Lin Ming looked at it for a moment and then gently thrust out his finger. Pa. A rune broke upon Lin Ming's fingertip, dissipating into nothing. Then, Lin Ming pointed out his finger again and again, sometimes destroying runes and sometimes changing their position or trajectory. After doing this dozens of times, the entire array formation began to wildly shake. Then the entire forest illusion collapsed. The giant beasts lurking amongst the infinite maze of towering trees vanished in plumes of smoke, leaving nothing behind. What replaced them was a circle of energy. Within this, waves of energy surged like a night tide, forming a blue mirror surface. Lin Ming faintly smiled. This was the entrance to the second level. To pass the first level using this method was also a test of how well Lin Ming had grasped the Azura Heavenly Tao. Lin Ming stepped into this pool of energy and arrived directly at the second level. As the waves of energy flowed over him, a strange sensation filled Lin Ming's mind. He was suddenly informed of his own completion percentage, 20%. This was the same result from the first time Lin Ming had come to the final trial. It seems that 20% is the maximum percentage possible from the first level. As Lin Ming thought this, he had already stepped into the second level of the final trial. As he arrived here, he could see that the second level was slightly different from what it had been before. This was a boundless desert. Moreover, as Lin Ming arrived here, he instantly felt a suppression of laws pushing down on him. An irresistible strength enveloped his inner world. An intangible and invisible energy formed a thin film over his inner world. Of all the energy he possessed, half was locked it. The source of this was a suppression dependent on one's skeletal age. The higher a martial artist's skeletal age, the more they would be suppressed. If those ancient rulers of sects and families were to enter here, their cultivation might possibly be suppressed to less than 0.001% of their original strength, making it so that the strength they could use was even less than the juniors. Lin Ming was already several thousand years old. But his situation was special. This was because he cultivated the grand reincarnation art. When Sheng Mai entered the final trial, it was also the existence of the grand reincarnation art that gave her unparalleled strength here. With the grand reincarnation art, the growth of a martial artist's skeletal age slowed down to a snail's pace. Moreover, the Holy Scripture itself was a cultivation method on par with the Azura Heavenly Tao. Because of that, it was hard for the rules of the final trial to restrain the grand reincarnation art. As Lin Ming walked through the final trial's second level, he did so with tremendous ease. No dangers could approach within 3 feet of Lin Ming. To the current Lin Ming, the first few floors of the final trial were much simpler than an adult adding 1 and 1 together. There just wasn't anything here capable of pressuring him. Soon Lin Ming saw that at the line of the horizon, a great metal gate loomed. The gate stood tall to the heavens, as heavy and towering as mountains, solemn and majestic. The gate constantly emitted golden rays of light. Countless runes revolved around the gate. Lin Ming was extremely familiar with this gate. This was the Gate of Laws. There were often many differences during the rounds of the final trial each time. But the Gate of Laws always existed every time the final trial opened. All trial challengers had to pass through the test of the Gate of Laws. When Lin Ming arrived in front of the Gate of Laws, he could faintly hear sounds of the great Tao rumbling from within. During the last time I was here, I already passed through the Azura difficulty Gate of Laws. I wonder what it will be like this time. According to the rules of the final trial, if my results from this time cannot surpass the results I obtained from the first time, then there is nothing I can obtain. In other words, if I still enter the Azura difficulty test, there isn't any meaning to that at all. The final trial shouldn't make me pass a meaningless test. As Lin Ming thought this, he began to wait before the Gate of Laws. The Gate of Laws would only open once the majority of trial challengers participating had arrived here. But Lin Ming had been too fast. Most people hadn't even gone halfway through the first level, but Lin Ming had already completed the second level trial. Lin Ming sat down and started to meditate. In the world of the final trial, he didn't want to waste a single second. He began slowly absorbing the remnant world energy all around him to nourish his own inner world. After 20 hours, Lin Ming felt other martial artists finally approach. He swept out his divine sense and discovered that there were several groups of martial artists. He saw a deep blue spirit boat flying in from the skies. At the bow of the spirit boat, a woman in ash-gray clothes stood tall against the wind. She wore a green veil on her face, and inserted on this green veil were 3 feathers. Lin Ming had seen this woman before. When Fairy Blue Lotus arrived at the entrance to the final trial, she had led 4 disciples, 3 of them men and 1 of them a woman. This grey-clothed woman was that female disciple. From the position she stood, he could guess that she was the core figure of the 4 disciples from Soaring Feather God Mountain. And beside those from Soaring Feather God Mountain, the disciples of the Good Fortune Saint Palace had also arrived. The Good Fortune Saint Palace had poured in an exorbitant amount of resources and were able to obtain many qualification tokens. They were able to bring over 20 disciples into the final trial. Many young elites had gathered together, and at the front of them was a fat man playing with a gourd of wine. He quietly sat atop a flying rug, a calm and presumptuous smile on his face. Because of all the meat packed around his face, his 2 narrow eyes made it seem as if he were sleeping. He had already noticed that his competition from Soaring Feather God Mountain had arrived, but he simply didn't place them in his heart. "We're about to arrive at the Gate of Laws," the fat man lazily said. "Yes." In sharp contrast to the fat man, the other disciples of Good Fortune Saint Palace were unusually energetic and cautious. "Millimeter, don't forget our mission. Not only do we have to obtain the trial rewards, but we also have to find that thing." The fat man drank some wine, a flash of light crossing his narrow eyes. Chapter 1964, Change in the Spatial Gate. Chapter 1964, Change in the Spatial Gate. As the disciples from the Good Fortune Saint Palace and Soaring Feather God Mountain approached, Lin Ming stepped back and hid himself in a space distortion, completely vanishing from sight. In the final trial, wanting to distort space wasn't easy. Lin Ming relied on his understandings of the Azura laws to do so. "Elder Senior Apprentice Brother, we've arrived first." A young disciple from the Good Fortune Saint Palace looked at the empty scene in front of the Gate of Laws, chuckling as he spoke. The Elder Senior Apprentice Brother he spoke of was naturally the fat man leading them. The fat man patted his belly. He drawled, "This isn't anything to be overly proud about. We come from the Good Fortune Saint Palace and we have the most people here. With so many of us working together, if we aren't the first group to arrive then we might as well go home and cry. Moreover, those from Soaring Feather God Mountain have also arrived." As the fat man spoke, his eyes peered into the horizon. He could see a deep blue spirit boat slowly but solidly flying towards them. That was the transportation device of Soaring Feather God Mountain's disciples. After the disciples from Soaring Feather God Mountain arrived, they only spared a glance at the Good Fortune Saint Palace disciples before gathering off on another side on their own where they began to meditate. As time passed, more and more trial challengers reached the Gate of Laws. As for Lin Ming, he chose a time when most of the trial challengers had arrived to quietly appear. No one noticed an extra person amongst the throngs. After Lin Ming appeared, the Gate of Laws began to shine with an even more dazzling light. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The earth shook. The Gate of Laws opened just a sliver and a horrifying aura gushed out like a tsunami. The hearts of those present quaked. The trial of the Gate of Laws was finally about to start. This was an extremely vital part of the Azura Road's final trial. The rewards dispensed at the Gate of Laws were incredibly rich. Moreover, from this point on, the results of the trial challenges would rapidly be pulled apart. The powerhouses would go higher and the weak ones would drop lower. Beneath the shroud of divine light, the gate completely opened. Within the gate was an incomparably vast starry space. 4 spatial gates were lined up in the starry space. These 4 spatial gates represented 4 difficulties. From largest to smallest, from easiest to hardest, they were the mortal step difficulty, earth step difficulty, heaven step difficulty, and also the Azura difficulty. The difficulty of the Gate of Laws was disgustingly abnormal. In the past, even the 6th Revolution Sheng Mai was barely able to perfectly complete the heaven step difficulty. Ha ha ha. It's finally opened. It's begun. The smaller the spatial gate, the more difficult it will be. This is one of our life's most important chances. Everyone, be a bit more cautious and give it everything you have. A sect disciple with some experience began to introduce the details of the Gate of Laws. The gazes of many trial challengers invariably drifted over to the rightmost spatial gate, the one that was also the smallest. This spatial gate was blood red, like a spinning vortex of blood. The aura it emitted caused one's heart to shake with fear and dread. Many martial artists felt a terrifying pressure just looking at it. They couldn't keep their eyes on this gate for a long period of time. Don't look, if you look too long then you'll suffer a soul wound. That gate isn't something that people can enter. An Azura Road disciple grimly said to several of his junior apprentice brothers. No one can enter. Thousands of years ago, wasn't there that monstrous genius Lin Ming who managed to perfectly pass the Azura difficulty? Is that legend true? Upon mentioning Lin Ming's name, the complexions of many martial artists changed. Lin Ming was a fabled existence within the Azura Road. In billions of years, he was the only final trial challenger who had managed to obtain a completion rate above 90%. This was a completion percentage so high it strained the neck. There were even many people that weren't willing to believe this rumor. That legend is true. Someone slowly said. The atmosphere of the field fell silent for a moment. Amongst those present, no one dared to choose the Azura difficulty. Even the Heaven Step difficulty caused people to shrink back. As for Lin Ming, not only had he chosen the Azura difficulty but he had perfectly passed it. This disparity was greater than clouds and mud. Elder senior apprentice brother, some people mentioned that boy. A disciple of the Good Fortune Saint Palace said in a hushed whisper. To the saints, especially talents of the saints, Lin Ming was a nauseating name. Their senior, the Good Fortune Saint's son, had originally been brutally beaten down by Lin Ming. Who cares if the legend is true or not? He's already dead. The fat elder senior apprentice brother loudly spoke up. Everyone turned their heads towards him. The fat man was casually lying back on his flying rug. He unhurriedly took out a bag of fruits from his spatial ring. These fruits were the size of longans and seemed to drip with jade-green juices, seeping with fragrance. Just by looking at them one could see that they were precious heavenly materials. The fat man began speaking as he popped these fruits into his mouth. His voice was a bit slurred. A dead genius is no longer a genius. Who cares how talented Lin Ming was when he was alive? It was bad enough he was born in the wrong race, but he was truly an idiot. A mere holy lord thought that he could save the divine realm. Really, I want to laugh myself to death. For my saint race, killing him was easy. The only problem was that he hid behind the protection of peak Empyreans, so we had to use a true divinity. To die by a true divinity's hands, he should be honored. The fat man lazily spoke, his words careless. As everyone heard these words, they felt various emotions in their hearts. Some felt pity for Lin Ming, but there were even more people gloating in his downfall. Where there were people, there was bound to be jealousy. In particular, geniuses hated being surpassed by others. When someone was so terrifying that no one could see their back, these people naturally hoped that something bad would happen to them. Enough with the chit-chat. Choose your gate. The fat elder senior apprentice brother waved his hand and the disciples of the Good Fortune Saint Palace began making their choice. What they chose was the Earth Step difficulty level. This difficulty level was already extraordinary. Of the many Azura Road disciples, most could only choose the Mortal Step difficulty. But then, the fat man also made his choice. He chose the Heaven Step difficulty. This was the same difficulty that Sheng Mai and Xiao Moxian chose in the past. From this alone it could be seen how hard it was. Of course, Sheng Mai had perfectly completed the Heaven Step difficulty in the past, moreover she had done so calmly. It was impossible for the fat man to do the same, but he might be able to partially complete it. After making his choice, the fat man looked towards the disciples of Soaring Feather God Mountain. Finally, the grey-clothed woman from Soaring Feather God Mountain decided not to weaken her momentum at all. She also chose the Heaven Step difficulty. Interesting. The fat man's lips curved up in a happy and thoughtful smile. Following that, the others made their choice. No one could summon the courage to follow in the footsteps of the fat man and the grey-clothed woman. They only chose the easier difficulties. And by this time, Lin Ming still hadn't made his choice. He looked towards these 4 spatial gates and frowned. His divine sense repeatedly scanned the Azura difficulty spatial gate, but he didn't detect anything strange. This spatial gate was exactly the same as the one he chose in the past. After seeing that 99% of the people had chosen and the Gate of Laws trial would soon begin, Lin Ming finally started to move. But he still couldn't make a choice. However, at this time, the Gate of Laws suddenly shined with a divine brilliance once more. The earth wobbled and quaked, even fiercer than before. Everyone was panic-stricken. They had no idea what had occurred. Ka. With a great cracking sound, the void to the right of the red Azura gate suddenly split open. A vortex of energy emerged from thin air, revolving without end, stabilizing that shattered space and turning it into another spatial gate. This spatial gate was a deep blood red, and even smaller, only a fifth of the Azura level gate's diameter. For a time, everyone was shocked. What was going on here? There were supposed to be 4 spatial gates. Why had another appeared? Moreover, this spatial gate was smaller than all the other ones present. If so, this meant it was even more difficult than the Azura level gate. Just as people thought this, someone suddenly paled as he began shivering. This new smallest spatial gate emitted a horrifying aura, one that affected his soul and nearly ruptured his spiritual sea. He quickly turned his head. Only then was he able to let out a breath of relief. Everyone looked away, no longer daring to look at the new spatial gate. How terrifying. It was like this gate contained demons. It seemed that their previous guess had been true. Then, was there anyone that could actually enter such a gate? Everyone glanced at each other in dismay. No one knew what to say. Then, a breathlessly angry voice resounded in the air. Fuck, this is such a damn tease. Everyone turned their heads. All they saw was the fat man who was eating his fruit suddenly throw the remaining fruits he had on the ground. There already isn't anyone capable of entering that damned red Azura gate, and now one with an even higher difficulty popped up out of nowhere. The brains of the final trial creator are really... As the fat man was cursing, he suddenly forcefully swallowed his last words just before he was about to say them. This was because the reputation of the Azura Roadmaster was too dazzling. The fat man didn't dare to violate this final taboo lest he incur the wrath of the Azura heavenly Tao laws. As the fat man spoke, the light of the final spatial gate grew increasingly bright. This blinding blood-red color made everyone feel as if they were about to tumble into hell, so suffocating that they couldn't breathe. As the luminescence reached its peak, they ever feared that glancing at the final spatial gate would cause their souls to fall into chaos. And in this situation, a person's blurry figure slowly approached this final spatial gate. However, because of the shroud of blood-red light, no one was able to clearly see him. I think someone walked in. An Azura Road martial artist hesitantly said with doubt, his eyes leaking tears. His foundation was solid, his soul force was formidable, and he was also extremely curious. He persisted in looking at the new spatial gate for a little bit longer and seemed to have seen someone's figure vanish into it. Are your eyes blind? You can die in this Gate of Laws trial, so who would dare enter that gate? Don't joke around. Those who enter that gate are either idiots or they are trying to kill themselves. Everyone began arguing with each other. But at this time, a powerful suction force reached out from every spatial gate. These suction forces contained the power of the Azura Heavenly Tao. All of the trial challengers were sucked into the spatial gates they chose. Then, after they entered, the Gate of Laws slammed tight behind them. The trial of the Gate of Laws had officially begun. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.